right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Brisbane City Council meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so all members of the council are present, so roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, there's no request under roll call item A, so we got Councilmember Davis. Here. Councilmember Kern.
Here.
Councilmember Mackin.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
And Mayor Lentz.
Here. All right. Adoption of tonight's agenda. Can I get a first and a second to adopt the agenda as is?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Great. Awards and presentations. So we have National Preparedness Month, and we have our North County Fire representative here this evening, and so I will read the proclamation. So we are proclaiming September 2025 is National Preparedness Month. Whereas during September, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the National Preparedness Month Coalition urge all Americans to take some simple steps to make their families better prepared for emergencies. And whereas placing an emphasis on personal responsibility and encouraging individuals and families to take an active role in their own preparedness, including creating emergency plans and building kits, and whereas highlighting the importance of community-wide preparedness efforts, including collaboration with first responders and participation in local initiatives, and whereas addressing prevalent threats like climate change, extreme weather, wildfires, and other potential hazards impacting communities across the nation, and whereas leveraging technology and promoting the use of resources like SMC Alert, emergency alert systems, and websites like www.northcountyfire.gov and www.ready.gov. And whereas it is highly recommended that our citizens become involved by participating in earthquake preparedness classes and the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. And whereas this important safety information should be studied and observed throughout the year in order to reduce injuries, loss of life, and property damage in the event of a disaster. And therefore, I, Cliff Lentz, Mayor of the City of Brisbane, do hereby proclaim September 2025 as National Preparedness Month and encourage all Brisbane residents to increase their knowledge and awareness of property safety measures to follow before, during, and after a disaster. And sir, if you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I'd like to, if I can add a few things with my notes here.
Absolutely.
The Fire Prevention Week for the school visits for the children in here is going to be starting at Monday, September 29th through Friday, October 10th. It's a great time where the fire department does come out and teach your children fire safety and awareness to come up for a plan of how to get in and out of a house safely, among other things. And also the North County Fire Authority's the open house for the fire service days will also be Saturday, October 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now they'll be here at Station 81 for to be open for the families to come down to talk to the firefighters, to be more aware of what the fire department does and for any questions that you may have. It's a fun time. Bring the kids down there. They can see what the firefighters do on a daily basis. And I thank you for your time. Thank you, Mayor, and everybody else to the community.
Yeah, thank you, Safety Inspector Higgins. And we have the proclamation, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
Thank you.
I'd like to give it to you. There you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you.
You want to do
Take a photo.
Oh, I'm
okay, yeah.
Oh.
Come on up. We could do it together, or like, that's kind of a
Not to
tradition
assume
now.
the position. The position, Frank.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Step on the ups.
Yeah. We need a platform for all of us.
Thank you. Yeah, we should have a little tape mark there for folks to stand.
Again, thank you again.
All right. Thank you, Inspector Higgins. All right, moving on to oral communications number 1. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak before the council on a matter that's not on the agenda. Michelle raised her hand first, so Chris, you'll be second.
Speaking about fire safety, I just really want to thank the city and the fire department and the council for clearing the tremendous amount of brush that built up between the field, the pool, and Humboldt Road. That has worried me for a really long time because it was like a fuse, direct line of fire from the mountain to the town where it really could spread. So I am greatly relieved to see the amount of work of clearing of the underbrush there. And so thank you. I feel safer.
All righty. Chris?
Thank you. September is Transit Month, but I'm not here to celebrate. I'm here to lament the loss of the 2 dedicated shuttles that served Brisbane through June of this year. In July, these shuttles were combined into a single shuttle, which has impacted the quality of service for both. Do we think we're done with that situation? Do we presume that we did the best we could and leave it at that? Mayor Lentz knew that the Caltrain shuttle was at risk at least since March. When I heard him mention it then, he seemed entirely reconciled to discontinuing the shuttle entirely, the Caltrain shuttle. Mayor Lentz did not show any concern for the residents or the employees who depended on that shuttle to get to their jobs. He did not inform us so that we could have responded to the situation. So we were left with crisis theater that, as I said, made it seem that we made the best decision. The sorry state of public transit options in Brisbane has consequences, which you can see when you walk down our streets filled with parked cars, or hear the howls of protest when a parking space must be removed to improve safety. I sympathize with those howling. What meaningful choices do they have? I recognize that not everyone wants to use public transit, but for those of us who do, our options are much more limited than your access to parking. I have given you some data. Each of you has a sheet. You can turn it over. Please note how much the ridership at the Bayshore station increased since December of 2023. Even before electrification, the service was improving. Note what happened to that increase in July when the shuttles were combined. Coincidence? I'm not sure. With service effectively doubling thanks to electrification, the Bayshore station represents a quality transit option if we can get to that station. I invite you not to settle for the shuttle compromise established in June and look for ways to restore and even expand both shuttles. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris.
And
Thank you.
thank you. Wow.
All right, anyone else for oral communications number 1? All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. And
I need to recuse from
yeah.
item J.
Item J. So if there isn't another item that someone would want to pull and discuss, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendar items C through I and K.
I would make that motion to approve items C through K, although I would like to, if possible, ask one question of staff after we approve the consent calendar.
Sure, is that okay, Tom?
I didn't understand, Councilwoman, I'm sorry, guys, I'm getting over COVID. Terry, were you saying leaving J off in your comment there?
Just the item that, no, all of the items I would approve, it's just we need to leave J off for a recusal. But I just have a question of staff to get back to us after we approve the consent.
Absolutely. I thought something had been said different, so no, this is fine.
Okay, so item C through I and then item K.
I'll make that motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Madison. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve item J.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great.
So the one question I had of staff is to ask that we get an update on where we are on our co-sponsorships for the year. I know we've had set a limit, which isn't necessarily set in stone, but maybe at the next meeting, we can get an update on where we are with co-sponsorships.
All right.
Happy to, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to item L, which is a public hearing. Consider introduction of an ordinance amending Brisbane Municipal Code chapters 15.10, 17.02, 17.12, 17.16, 17.32, 17.34, and 17.43 to amend regulations pertaining to accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. City last comprehensively updated our ADU or accessory dwelling unit regulations in 2020. Since that point in time, the state has adopted a number of changes to the regulations, which change the streamlining procedures, increasing the number of ADUs allowed, limit discretionary review by the city of these kind of projects, and the city's ordinance need to be updated. So we undertook that over the last 18 months or so. In May of this year, the Planning Commission considered the draft ordinance that's in front of you and recommended adoption by unanimous vote. Again, some of the issues, I don't want to get into this in detail. There's a lot of technical issues that are raised in the ordinance, but primarily it just brings the city's ordinance into alignment with state law. The only exception is there's a provision in state law that detached ADUs are limited to height of 18 feet within a half mile of determined transit stops. And outside that half mile radius, the height limit can be 16 feet. But if you look at it on a map, it really does, there's very few properties that are subject to the 16-foot limit. So the Planning Commission did recommend a uniform 18-foot limit. So you wouldn't have a situation where two lots on the same street literally could have a different height limit. So they did recommend the 18-foot uniformly. Everything else in the ordinance complies with state law. With that, we're recommending the introduction of the ordinance, and we'd be glad to take any questions you have.
All right, any questions for staff? Okay, Councilmember Mackin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, John, for the report. And I have one question, and really I think it's to help clarify for us and the public. On the first page at the very bottom, one of the bullet points says, eliminate the requirement for an ADU permit within the Brisbane Acres Residential District. Could you explain, please?
We used to have a ADU permit, which was discretionary, but with the changes in state law, all we can apply are standards that are uniform, and so there's no value in a discretionary process because we can't really apply any discretion. So that process was eliminated, as it's been eliminated in other zoning districts as well.
Okay, and second, just a clarification, because some of the language I found confusing. Minimum height limit. The height limit period is 18 feet across the board in the city in this proposed ordinance.
Correct.
Thank
And the
you.
minimum maximum is a little confusing, but it is an 18-foot limit.
Frank, you have any questions?
No questions here, thank you.
So I just would like, John, I'd like to clarify that nothing in this ordinance exceeds state requirements other than that 2-foot waiver in areas that are further away from transit.
That is correct.
Okay. And would that regulation, that change affect predominantly or most of the Brisbane Acres?
Sorry. There's a map on the back page of the report. Some of the acres, yeah, that would be the changes. And the area that's outside the half mile that would be affected. some of the blocks of Humboldt, for example.
Okay, so it's not very much that's affected,
It's very limited.
very little that's
That's why
affected.
we felt commission felt it was appropriate to treat everybody the same, given the
Okay,
regulations.
thank you very much.
Let me just ask Councilmember
okay.
Davis, if she's got any questions.
Oh, I don't have any.
Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, John, could you clarify when we look at the map, and of course, this is taking into account part of the ridge, has there been any discussion about ADUs with regard to homeowners associations such as we find up on the ridge?
There's been no changes in state law that make us change our regulations, so no.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mayor, one question.
Oh, absolutely.
John, good report. Can you just clarify just quickly, how many ADU applications have we had in the last, we'll call it calendar year, just roughly? Is it more than 1,000, more than one? What does it look like?
It's more than one and less than 100. I have my planner, Mr. Robbins is, I believe, on the Zoom. He'd probably have a better sense of the number. Jeremiah, are you on the call?
I am here, and we average about 7 building permits for ADUs a year.
Just to clarify, and that's for ADUs and junior ADUs, or just ADUs?
That would be both. Primarily, we've been getting ADUs, but that number captures both.
Thank you.
All right. The only question I have, John, is what the state declares is I guess a stop, a transit stop. I always thought that would be more like a station. We have commute.org stops. We don't have bus stops, in central Brisbane. Of course, along Bayshore we do. So how is it reflective of the commute.org shuttle stops, or is it the Samtrans stops on Bayshore?
Unfortunately, the state, the regulations vary in terms of what they consider a quality transit stop. And for this particular criteria, it's the bus stops, it's a shuttle stop, it's basically anything would qualify.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So this is a public hearing, and so if there are members of the public who would like to make a comment, it's always good to fill out a slip, but of course you can raise your hand and come on up. So, Michelle, come on up, please.
2 feet doesn't seem like much, but 2 feet is the difference between a 1-story and a 2-story ADU. And the area that they're asking for that to extend to is in the steeper areas of town that are further away from the transit, where we already have narrow roads and tough parking. And so I kind of not in favor of this because it's just going to put further stress on areas that are already very stressed traffic and access-wise and parking-wise. So really, the 2 feet is the difference between 1-story and 2-story because it's 16 feet. You cannot have legally 2 stories with 8 feet because you have to have some infrastructure in between. And so I'm actually opposed. I don't think we should do this. I think it puts us at risk with having ADUs, 2-story ADUs, in an area that we probably shouldn't be having them. Sorry to say that because I know we need housing, but safety of the people that are here and safety of everyone is important. And I don't think it's safe. I know it's convenient, 18 feet, all across the board, but I say no. It really does make a big difference. And I'm not thinking about tomorrow or the next 6 months or the 7 ADUs we have here right now. I'm thinking of, 10, 20 years down the road where we're going to be wanting to pack people in like sardines. And I just think it's a bad idea. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. All right. Anyone else? Anyone online? No. Okay. So let's take a motion to, or entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. Council discussion or any further questions to staff? Councilmember Davis, you want to start?
So, I mean, my understanding is that adopting this, it brings us into compliance with state law. And so often, so many of these things that come forward that we're not that thrilled about is not the city going out and saying, hey, let's make buildings taller, but really responding to what we're charged with from the state. And so I want to make sure that that's accurate, and I want to clear that up for the public as well. And so I feel like we do this frequently, but just to, continue to move through this process, if we don't adopt another 2 feet, people can just do it anyway, right? There's less review, or,
Well, the 2 feet that we're talking about on those limited number of lots, that is, the state limit is 16 feet outside the half mile and 18 feet within the half mile. The Planning Commission recommended an 18-foot limit just across the board to eliminate the idea that literally two houses on the same street could have a different height. I would point out that the height, the square footage is also limited, and there will be no more additional square footage based on a 2-foot height limit. The ADUs are capped in size as well. So.
right.
That's right, the 800 square feet.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving forward. I think it's easier process on staff to have something that's just blanketed across the board. And I would be upset if I lived on a block and my neighbor was able to do something and I wasn't able to do that same thing being on the same street. So I think, for purposes of staff being able to do their job swiftly, I think the easier and fair it is across the board, to me, I understand what Michelle has said, but I feel fine with 18 feet.
Okay. Councilmember McConnell?
So we're certain that the major transit stop includes our shuttle stops, which are discretionary to Brisbane paying for them. They could change at any time if we don't have the money. And so we're considering discretionary stops that are just subject to the whim of the council, so to speak, and their partnership with commute.org, possibly, as being a major transit stop. That seems unusual to me that that would be something that would apply in this case to as a major transit stop. It's hard to even for me to justify the such limited 292 route that we have as being major transit. It is not like that corridor is transit rich. But I'm not sure what the state's definition of major transit stop is in this iteration. But, I would want to make sure that that really is the case when, just a couple months ago, we were very close to losing possibly any of those transit stops except the major bus routes that, basically have 4 limited stops in the entirety of our city.
That's a good point.
If I may, Councilmember McConnell, I think the definition in the law, which just changed last year, is instructive. It's not just, John gave an example that applies in Brisbane, but a major transit spot for purposes of this act is an existing rail or bus rapid transit station, a ferry terminal served by either a bus or rail transit service, the intersection of two or more major bus routes. It's a whole list of as broad as they can make it. So it's not just coming down to one thing that's unique to the city and where it might place it. It looks for anything it can along transportation corridors and have that half mile apply as much as possible statewide. So that's how it hits you all. But there are other things. You have Caltrain, you have other things that would also trigger the half mile.
Also, there's a 15-minute rule.
No, there's not.
Michelle, is there a frequency that's, Tom, do you know, or John, do you know if there is a frequency issue as brought up by a member of the audience?
Not in this definition. In other definitions in state law, yes, but not for this particular set of ADU regulations. That's not a criteria as for a transit stop is the headway, 15-minute headway.
John, I thought it still applied to the bus route. I'm sure John's right. We can talk offline and we'll report back if I've read something slightly differently. I did think the 15 minutes still applied to the bus routes.
Should we pause on this then? So
Jeremiah,
that-
could I check with my planner? Jeremiah, do you have access to that definition?
It actually includes service interval of 20 minutes or less.
So I'm looking at the bill and it's got 15 minutes or less. So this bill's incredibly controversial and they're going to change it in the next 2 weeks of this session. I don't think it'll impact this, but there is an interval time requirement. Jeremiah's probably right at 20. I'm looking at the bill, it says 15, but there is an interval requirement. The goal of the legislature was to be as broad as possible to capture any area where there's commuters or there's heavy traffic in their definition.
Well, surely we're more than 15, or even, is it like every half hour? For our
The
commute.org?
shuttles. Yeah.
Yeah.
every
Well,
30 minutes.
and even for our bus service, I don't think it's every 20 minutes.
And it's only during commute hours, right? So,
Yeah.
But that's only the major bus route intersection. It's not, that interval is limited in application.
All right, so we
And-
are just introducing it tonight, so we're not going to make a final decision,
Yeah.
so, but this is
We
definitely
will
something-
verify
yeah, I
this
get
and
the-
bring language back to
the
modify it.
definition.
If indeed some of these stops do not qualify, we will be modifying the map and we could recommend different language.
Terry
Okay.
has raised really
Yeah, and
good
can
questions.
we just have a look at what the definition of an interval is too, and whether or not it's average interval or actual interval?
It's frequency of service interval. They're right there with you. They're trying to make it as broad as possible, Frank, but we'll make sure you all see it.
Okay, great.
So if we pass this tonight, we would be bringing it back at the next meeting, or when would we anticipate bringing this back for a second?
Reading?
We'd bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, and we'll have those questions answered at that
yes.
point?
Yes.
Yes.
So are you suggesting then
what do you-
making a motion
Yeah,
now? Or just waiting?
Well, I was waiting to see if anybody else had any input before I blurted out
Or
that
some-
I would make a motion to approve. I was just giving a pregnant
Councilmember
pause, so
Kern,
to speak.
any comments?
Blurt away.
With that, and with the understanding we'll have more information, I will make a motion to approve item L.
Okay, so, all right, so, we got a motion to introduce the ordinance. We have a second.
I'm sorry,
Councilmember Mackin hasn't said anything.
but but my apologies. It's introduction. It's,
Introduction.
yeah, thank you.
Yes, to introduce, so, you didn't sound like you were good.
I wanted to acknowledge both Chris Flakowski and Michelle's comments, because in their infinite wisdom, and I know there's housing shortages and I know we need housing, but when all of these ADU regulations were introduced, it was on the premise that everyone occupying ADUs would be riding public transit, hence the distance from public transit. And I will tell you from my observations within Brisbane, that is not the case. So we must be an anomaly in the state of California. But I will also attribute a lot of credit to Chris, because in the infinite wisdom of transit planners, we've been left out of the picture. So we're caught between the rock and the hard place
Yes.
of aspirational versus reality, but no one in Sacramento pays attention. That's my rhetorical comments. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Just to clarify, I just looked, Jeremiah is certainly more right than I am. The 15-minute only applies to major bus routes. The 20-minute applies to everything else. So there is a 20-minute interval and there's a 15-minute interval.
So I don't feel like it applies to us then.
It changes the
We'll
map,
look back on
doesn't
that.
it?
I just want to recognize that there's two different references in the bill, that's all.
I think we'll get the clarification when it comes back before us.
And at that point, we can make any modifications that we need to. And if that means
Absolutely.
making more of the city the blanket of 16 feet and reducing that 18-foot leadway that we have because of radius, then we can do that at that time.
Yes.
All right, so first, anyone else?
I'll
first?
second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay. Let's move on to item M, review and consider approval of the Complete Street Safety Committee's recommendation to implement full street closures in the downtown area on the evening of Halloween, October 31st, 2025. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. This evening, I'm here to present the recommendation from the Complete Streets Committee regarding Halloween activities for October 31st, 2025. The recommendation before you is for the City Council to review and consider implementing a full street closures in the downtown area during Halloween trick-or-treat hours from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. as outlined in an attached map that you have attached. In addition, the committee recommends hosting a city-sponsored Halloween event at the community park for younger children. The purpose of both measures is to enhance pedestrian safety while also providing safe and festive environments for families that are trick-or-treating. To provide context on how this recommendation came forward, on August 6th, a meeting with the Complete Streets Safety Committee, community members presented a proposal to close streets in the lower downtown area on Halloween. Halloween in Brisbane is one of our most popular community traditions, attracting a large number of families and visitors. With this level of activity, concerns were raised about vehicular traffic and the need for a safer environment. The proposal requested closure of Mariposa Street, Monterey Street, and Mendocino Street from Visitation to Alvarado, as well as the closure of San Bruno Avenue and between Mariposa and Mendocino. Additionally, San Francisco Avenue and San Bruno Avenue near the community park were proposed for closure to allow for the Halloween event at the park if chosen to do so. The committee initially considered a soft closure with limited ingress and egress for vehicles, but after further discussion with staff, even a limited amount of movement of vehicles would create a safety risk. Staff is therefore recommending full street closures for the proposed streets with no vehicle access allowed during the events between 5 and 9, except in case of an emergency. Community volunteers have offered to assist in monitoring the closure points since both police and public works lack the staffing and resources to fully manage the event on their own. Parking impacts were also considered, and the committee recommended that both City Hall and possibly the Bank of America parking lot be made available for use that evening for parking. If the council does not wish to approve the full downtown closures, an alternative plan would be to close San Francisco Avenue only and host the City Halloween's event at the community park. The final recommendation from the committee is for the City Council to approve the full hard closure of all proposed streets contained within the map, and the understanding that an immediate and robust public messaging will be necessary to ensure residents and visitors are well informed ahead of time. As to fiscal impact, costs would be tied primarily to city staff time to stage and remove the Type 3 barricades for a full closure, along with the use of electronic message board and alert motorists of the closures. Additional minor costs may include signage and limited staff support during the event. Community volunteers assisting with monitoring would help reduce the staffing costs. Should council prefer the alternative plan of hosting only the park event, costs would then shift to event preparation and operations. That concludes my report, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add just a few comments. First of all, I want to thank Sarah Mills, who's here tonight, who brought this idea forward, and I certainly encourage her to utilize the town's committee structure to have this conversation. So thank you so much, Sarah. Secondly,
With support from Jessica Loft.
yeah, Jessica, are you? I think
sure
you're
she's
online too.
watching.
Thank you, Jessica. While we do make recommendations on an alternative proposal here related to a Parks and Rec event, I would remind the council that Park and Rec just came out of a very busy season. We've got a number of events that they're doing around Halloween, and while we'd be happy to do it, it's a significant ask. So I think from the perspective of staff, we certainly support either position, but would love, certainly support the full closure.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you, Commander Garcia, for the staff report. So we'll start with questions. Councilmember Davis.
So 3 council members live in the proposed closure area, so I just want to confirm that we can vote on this, because 3 of us are in this section. So this directly affects us?
Tom?
Oh, no.
So there's 2 ways you can go legally. I'm just going to say the 5 of you can vote on it. The other alternative would be that we'd literally have the 2 who don't live in the area vote, plus a drawing of lots for one of the 3 of you. We don't need to do that. You can vote on it.
Okay.
There you go.
I was thinking about myself, and then I looked at the map and I was like, wait a minute. There's a few of us here. Because I definitely, and once we hear from everything, I have opinions as somebody who lives on this street and what I see. But I'll keep it to questions right now. Do we know how many spots we have for parking at Bank of America?
I do not know that offhand. I'm not sure if Tomas does. About
Like
20
a
of them.
rough number. A
20.
dozen?
About 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay. How about, would we have both of our lots open or just 50?
We could obviously have both of them open.
Do we have a sense of how many spots together we might have here?
I don't know that offhand, how much we have here.
I'll throw a number out. I think it's in the 40s range.
Okay, I was thinking 40 or 50. Okay, just to get a sense of like truly how much parking we as the city can offer. And then did Complete Streets consider Klamath? Because I feel like Klamath is a very heavily trick-or-treated street and it's really dark and kind of narrow. And I just was surprised I didn't see Alvarado. I understand because I don't think kids go up that high. But when I was a kid, we always started like we would go from essentially Madhouse down, and there were so many houses on that portion of Klamath that participate. I was curious if Klamath had been considered.
It was not at the time, no.
Okay. And then so sounds like the Halloween event that the city could do is if we didn't do. So there's essentially like an A that's created on this grid, which is San Francisco, Plumas, and that part of Mariposa. So if you didn't have the Halloween event that the city would put on through Park and Rec, is there still a need to close all these streets down here?
We would not. We would not.
So
recommend
which
that.
you would not close San Francisco or more than that?
We would not close San Francisco at that point.
So you still would propose Plumas and that portion of Mariposa?
Yeah, that portion of Mariposa would still be closed. Plumas can be opened up and just, yeah.
Because that
Plumas
is
would-
like a lot of the park area right there, that can hold a lot of cars.
Correct, it can.
So if there are people that are coming in from out of town or people affected on the streets nearby, to me, that's where a lot of overflow parking could go. So curious. Okay. And then, those are all my questions right now.
Okay. Councilmember Kern.
Great questions and great report. I too was looking at the map, and My question is just around the thinking of San Bruno between Mariposa and San Francisco. That doesn't show as closed, and I was just curious about that.
Oh, got it. Yes. Yeah, we did that. We didn't think about closing that only because that provides some legal street parking there as well. And it would just, the main purpose between closing between Mariposa to Mendocino would be to that you can use that portion of San Bruno to transgress between those streets.
Thank you. Referencing Councilmember Davis's comment about Klamath Street, let me just step back. I live on Mendocino Street. Last year, I audited my Costco bill, and I purchased 1,000 pieces of candy last year, and they were gone before 9, long before 9, and I had lights out. So
Long before 9.
long before 9. And so I did see people going up and down Napa over to Klamath, and I think we should consider potentially closing down Klamath as well. That's my opinion. The next thing I just wanted to call out, and again, this is just a question because I'm wondering if you took this into consideration. Again, I'm a resident on Mendocino Street. I have never received a FedEx package, a UPS, DHL, Amazon, and occasionally Instacart. I have never received a package from them before noon. They are focusing delivery usually between 3:30 and 6:30 at night. And in the last couple of years, when the trick-or-treaters have been out, and I'm talking about the mobs of trick-or-treaters where they're not using the sidewalks, they're just in the streets, these vans are cruising through making deliveries to homes at that time. And I'm just wondering, was any consideration given to delivery drivers? And I didn't even include Grubhub or things like that at this point, but just wondering what the thinking was on that.
How do you communicate? Like, to follow up, how do you communicate? They just come to make the delivery and they're like, oh, can't.
So I think with robust public noticing, I mean, if you have packages that you think you're going to purchase, I would not plan them to be delivered on Halloween for that evening, especially if you get packages in late. Obviously, you can't help all your deliveries, especially if they're a month out or that's the day they pick, but it gives you time to plan for that for 4 hours.
Thank you. And in terms of volunteers, because you did mention the accurate statement that we don't have enough city resources to actually block the streets and
That's
make sure that
correct.
they stay blocked. What are we looking at in terms of a total number? Just a rough
At this
estimate.
point, we would have possibly 9 points of entries where we would have type 3 barricades. We could do 1 at each of those points just so that it can be monitored so the barricades do not get moved by anybody that wants to ingress or leave. And it would be advantageous to have at least 1 person so that if we discussed this with North County Fire, they had no problems with disclosures as long as that if they had to respond, there would be someone there to move those barricades immediately. So we could go with 9.
Okay, thank you. We're not proposing this repeated year over year. This is considered a test, yes or no?
It was a test with the sprinkler that it could be a yearly event from here on out, yes.
Great. And then I guess might be a question for Jeremy. Do we have any measurement criteria after the closures are done, after Halloween is over, on whether or not we feel this is successful?
Having done something similar in other communities, what we typically looked for was feedback post-event, see where people were. We could certainly solicit that as part of our activity. I'm not so worried that we won't hear from people if there's a real issue here in Brisbane. So I think that's the best mechanism to really understand it. And not everyone's going to be happy. There's just no way around that. You do your best in communication, but there will be people who will be impacted, and that's the challenge in a proposal like this.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Councilmember Mackin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commander Garcia, could you tell me how many officers you would anticipate needing on duty?
Actually, we wouldn't have any more than we would normally do. We run on that day, we'd have 2 officers on day shift, 2 officers on night shift. We generally bring in day shift 2 hours earlier, so they would be here by 5, and then we would ask our day shift officers to hang over. So in total, we would have 4 available on mobile to respond to any emergencies.
I'm just going to echo something that Councilmember Kern said, is that in my years, I'm on San Bruno Avenue. If you have 800 pieces of candy on San Bruno, by 8 o'clock, you're going to Midtown for more candy.
One a kid too, like
Yes,
one a kid.
And part of the difficulty, and I appreciate all the concerns about safety, is that we get an enormous amount of cars from out of town.
Yeah.
And so the reason I asked you about how many officers you would think would be on duty is who's going to direct the traffic when all of these cars that have been coming for years, and we're a little more removed from COVID. So there's going to be people when you say public announcement, how do we reach people from San Francisco, Viz Valley, South San Francisco, saying, if you're all coming in your cars, where are you going to go?
Well, we would have that CMS messaging board available by the Christmas tree lot, and that would obviously be put out as early as possible to warn everyone on 31st, you're going to have to find legal street parking to park.
You would need signage at the 5 points to say, like, and then at the skate park, parking. Like, it would need to be treated like an event style where you have even people out there. This would be great for the yak who want to participate in Halloween, but maybe aren't of the age where they want to trick or treat, but they still want to be in the action. They can, direct people where, because most people from out of town aren't going to know where our City Hall parking area is.
I think my concern is that we're underestimating the traffic problem, in that if you've got people who maybe they work and they come home after 5 o'clock, they may or may not know. One would assume with signage, you give them a heads up, but they're going to try to go to parking. So are anyone else. And then you get the random delivery trucks that don't know, and you got a bottleneck. You can't just leave people to their devices doing U-turns and trying to figure out how to deal with our streets. So I think that there's a lot more really needs to be investigated here, so that it doesn't just turn into, instead of an event, a circus, because that won't be amenable to anybody. I think it really has to be thought through.
If I can make a comment, if the council did choose to move forward on this initiative, my priority would be to ensure it's the best event possible. So I'd be happy to sit down with the staff who would be participating in this and coming up with the most robust program that we could, given the resources we have, to make sure that it doesn't become anything more difficult. I haven't, I've only been here 1 year for Halloween, and I didn't participate. I wasn't walking around. But I imagine that parking is a challenge regardless. I know we're going to be adding to that parking problem, but if you've got hundreds of cars coming, they're looking for parking all over town, so we can point them in the right direction. I think we can make that work.
An additional question is, there's going to be a cost associated with this, and I understand you didn't want to put staff through trying to actually enumerate all those costs. Is this coming out of someone's budget? Because we just finished the budget, and we're shy over $1 million. So I'd like to know who's paying for it.
Well, we'll have to find an account. The funds that were put aside in the budget did not anticipate this. So I think it's an accurate statement to say that there would be an increase. Over the course of a year, you tend to see things balance out a bit because you don't see expenditures other places. I don't know, Mario, if you've got a sense of it, but if we needed to rent some signs, do various things like that, these are nominal costs. They're not going to break the bank.
Also, overtime is going to come out, like if there's overtime for public works, like that's going to come out of public works, right? So
get those budgets.
It'll get spread. Maybe some things will end up in Park and Rec, some things will end up in public works.
Yeah, and we find ways to
Police.
balance it out. I mean, we always want to make sure we're not going over budget, right? So this early in a year, I think you can manage that effectively.
Any further questions, Councilman?
Thank
Okay.
Just one more question.
Okay.
So Jeremy, for an event like this, and I think this is a super interesting test. I'm very, very invested in this. I'm very interested in this. So I'm glad you brought this forward. Can we do a press release, a repeated press release to the entire Bay Area to see if anyone picks up the story and is like starting to publish this, that Brisbane is going to be different this year, so people know when they're coming here.
Yeah.
That might bring more people, Frank.
It could bring more people, yeah.
Well, you know what? That's actually probably a good point. But at the same time, we're already bringing thousands of people that don't live here. And
It's
giving them
crazy.
the
Well,
heads up.
I can title the press release, "Don't come here for Halloween," because it's going to be really
Well,
hard if you want to do
We
that.
may want to stick that into AI, but yeah, I see your point.
All right. Councilmember O'Connell, questions?
Yes, I do. So our normal Saturday night versus a normal Saturday night Halloween, and this is
Friday.
a real biggie, what day of the week Halloween falls on. It also is a really, or excuse me, Saturday or Friday. It's also a big deal as to what the weather is, as
Yeah.
far as what kind of turnout that people expect and when it really starts. When it starts on a Wednesday, it's usually later. If it starts on a Friday, it's usually a little later than it is on a Saturday. But what is our normal police coverage for? Are we changing any police coverage for this event?
We are not. We are keeping the same staff that we have now.
We would be
have other years.
anticipating usage of as much police coverage as we can afford and have available
Correct.
for
Yes.
this event, regardless of whether we are closing streets or not.
Correct, yes.
And did the Complete Streets look at what it would look like just to have flaggers at community flaggers, whether it's police or community members, volunteers, flaggers at the headways rather than close the streets? Flaggers that could flag to make sure people are aware of children and the possibility of kids and issues happening in the streets. Did we look at that as an option, or did they look at that as an option?
They did look at that as an option, like a soft closure, so that, you know, if there was residents that wanted to enter, they could weed them out. I mean, they could ask them where they live and let them in. Unfortunately, for even on the police side, that normally is an anomaly. I mean, when someone goes into that closure, depending on how fast people think they're going, if they're seeing people, it would not be safe to commingle vehicles in the evening with toddlers in the street who may not see each other.
Or
So-
hear a vehicle. I
Oh,
mean, now you can barely hear a Tesla. It's sneaking up on you. And if you're a child and you think you're under the impression there's no vehicles.
Correct. So that was considered, but as staff, we considered and said, no, it has to be a full
Okay.
closure.
And then also, as a matter of history, have we had an incident of a child being hit in Brisbane on Halloween?
We have not.
No, we have not. Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, Commander Garcia, on the page 119, so the first page in the, under discussion. So initially, the community members had proposed a soft closure, and then the committee and, you know, had a compromise, then staff said, okay, let's do the hard closure. Can you, so was there ever any discussion in regards to perhaps having, say, a soft closure for the first hour? Because you're looking at 5 to 6, and then say a hard closure from say 6 to 8, and then a soft closure 8 to 9, so that you know, folks could get home right after work.
No, the discussion was only whether a soft closure or a full closure.
So if there was some kind of soft closure in the beginning, or just no closure in the beginning, you know, 5 to 6, and then you started the hard closure at 6 o'clock, just so that, you know, trying to minimize, say, frustration for homeowners that live in this zone?
Absolutely. I mean, that could be council's pleasure to move the hours to later. 5 o'clock was brought up so that the small toddlers and strollers could be out early because they like to get out early, so to accommodate those parents along with their small children. But at council pleasure, you could definitely move it if you'd like.
Okay, and then I know that, so what is being proposed potentially is having the hard closure in the residential area as well as San Francisco along the park, so that you could do a kids event there, little kids.
If that was the wish of council, yes.
Yeah, and so we could do that that could potentially be done at 5 o'clock, correct?
It could, yes.
Right, so then you at least have that area for the little ones that would go to bed earlier.
It
Sorry, I
could.
missed what did you say? I missed what you just said.
So along the park, along San Francisco, perhaps doing hard closure at 5. I'm just throwing out, like, are there possibilities of having different
But they
time
said that
closures?
they, like, if we're gonna do closures elsewhere, like, that the city wouldn't do San Francisco because we would only do it if the city was planning
An
to
event,
do
yes.
a Halloween event, right? Which I think would cost, now we're talking about real money now.
Yes, but that is on the table, so I'm just getting a rough
okay.
idea of what could be done.
And I think the hours of making it 5 was also to give the small ones the ability to go house to house and trick or treat versus just hang out at the park. It's kind of a different experience, obviously, if you're going house to house and saying,
It is a different experience.
Yeah, I think I'm stealing from a comment that I heard earlier today, so my apologies. But it seems that the experience people want in Brisbane is to go trick or treating, probably not go hang out in the park.
That's like a trunk or treat type of
Yeah, I mean,
setup.
again, we're happy to do it, but I would expect that most people are going to just go trick or treating.
Got it, yeah. And then in regards to the volunteers, and it sounds like you would be looking at 9 volunteers.
Yeah, we would start at 9 so that at each barricade, or type 3 barricade, there would be one person there to be able to move barricades if they had to.
Okay.
Based on the council conversation so far, my desire would be to see some increase in the number of volunteers, so we would touch base with the normal folks just to have a good presence.
Yeah, and so how would we go about getting the volunteers? I mean, obviously, if it's parents are going to want to be with their kids. They're not going to be volunteering to the closure, so.
Yeah, well, I think we'd put out a call. I think we would also talk to our friends at Lions Club to see what their availability is. I've had some great conversations recently with the new president, and they reaffirmed their desire to be available at anything that we do. So I'm
the
confident
app
we
is
could
good.
find some folks.
I would say that it would need to be 2 shifts because what if you have to go to the bathroom? 4 hours is a long time to commit to standing somewhere.
It's also potentially a long time to get yelled at by people. So I think
Yeah.
that, mixing it up a bit is a good idea.
Okay. And then, looking at the map in regards to the closures, and geez, I've been living here over 30 years. I should know these streets by heart. But, coming up visitation, right before the first closure, there's another street that someone could be directed to make a right turn and then get on, what's the street? I'm just thinking of ways for people to not have to make the U-turns, as Councilmember Mackin has suggested. And because I think whatever map we put together, there's got to be volunteers that can direct people to, have an escape route to get away from this rather than making a U-turn and coming back out. So based upon what we have here, is it possible to have turns prior to the closures?
Yes, absolutely. And if someone were to go up for visitation, they can make a right on Mariposa, right on Inyo, and come back out that way, right at post office.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. Okay, that's it for me right now. Before we open it up to the public, do council members have any other questions?
I have one quick one.
Okay.
What would the difference be between a volunteer directing people away from a hard barricade and a volunteer from the police perspective, and a volunteer flagging people to be cautious.
The volunteers at the barricades would just simply be there to make sure that no one moves those barricades. They wouldn't be doing any more than that just to make sure that no one moves them. As far as flagging to a certain direction, we would have to then take a closer look on who we would choose and have direct them what to do.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's open it up to the public.
Oh, I thought Colleen had something else.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add to something you said, Mr. Mayor. Usually from 5 to 6, what I've seen always on San Bruno are the young kids
Yes.
with their parents.
Yes.
The older the kids get, they're later after it's dark. They don't want to go out in the light. It is with parents, so you're correct about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's open up to the public. Sarah, please come on up to the podium. And if anyone else would like to speak, I mean, of course, you could raise your hand. You could also fill out a slip too. All righty.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mills. I am a resident on Mariposa Street in one of the areas that's proposed to be shut down. And first, I just want to say thank you to Jeremy for even having this initial discussion. It was about 2 months ago. We had an informal conversation with a couple of parents on how we can just make the street safer. And this idea came out of that, saying it doesn't have to be all about the doom and gloom. It can also be about celebration. And so this is where the idea really took birth. And it's actually really wonderful to see how much of a life it's taken on. And also thank you to the Complete Streets Committee to listening to the proposal and putting forth, listening to the suggestion and putting forth a proposal, and to Commissioner Garcia and the staff for really just putting this all together. It's been really fun hearing everybody discuss this, as well as having the conversations with all of our neighbors over the last couple of weeks about this idea. And everyone that I've talked to along the areas of the routes that were proposed, including some of the council members on this board, it seems to be a lot of just not only excitement, but sometimes even, wow, why hasn't this been done before? And that's because, as I think everybody in this room has talked about, Halloween is such a special night in Brisbane. I've only been a resident here for 5 years, but I knew from the first Halloween night that this is a holiday that everyone really, really not only enjoys, but goes all in on. That said, I am also a mother to a 4-year-old. And so while I was really, really excited for the festivities, whenever it was time to take her out, I would get really, really nervous because of all of the traffic that was on the streets of the downtown areas that we were going to, especially San Bruno. And that was the street that we used to traverse to get to the more side streets, Mariposa, Monterey, and Mendocino. And so we've always had the conversation amongst my group of friends and neighbors, wouldn't it be great if we had some type of traffic mitigation so that everyone can just really enjoy this festive holiday in a truly spirited way? And it doesn't have to be just for the kids. It can also be for the older people or people who have mobility challenges. So that was really the heart of where the idea came through. You addressed a lot of the concerns I was going to bring up, but I will just add on to some of the conversations that were had in terms of delivery. I would ask and inquire, I'm assuming that other towns have done this. So what have other towns done during Halloween night? And also there have been street closures for other festivities in town. So what happens for the delivery trucks for, let's say, the yard sale or for the Derby Street? I'm curious to understand how people navigate that. My assumption is either the deliveries have to be rescheduled, or perhaps in the case of a Grubhub or a food delivery, maybe people have to go and meet them. From a parking perspective, there isn't a lot of free parking in the streets that have been proposed as is. I am a resident on that street, and it's hard to get parking anyways. So what this would also do is mitigate the double parking that we also see on Halloween night. I've seen a couple of times people double park, which creates even more visibility challenges. And a couple of other things I just want to address is The impact on the residents who are on those streets, yes, it will increase their candy burden potentially, but also Halloween is not a mandatory event. So we do not have to, I don't think this is a event that everyone has to participate in. In terms of other neighborhoods, when talking to friends and neighbors outside of the area, they too have expressed their support for this idea because they come to the street, those streets that have been proposed. And in terms of closing Klamath, yes, we proposed, when Jessica and I originally did this, we said, let's close the pie, right? From San Bruno to Visitation. It morphed into what you see in front of you. I think at least my personal biggest concern is closing San Bruno because that is the most traffic intense area. But if we want to extend it to Klamath, I would be in support of that. And although this is a pilot year, I do hope that this can be something that we do on an annual occurrence, just because of all the conversations I've had and the heart that I've seen for the idea. So in closing, thank you for considering this. I hope that we get to a resolution of how we can do some type of street closure, because while the event in the park, to what Jeremy mentioned, is an alternative idea, the spirit of trick-or-treating is really going to house. So we really hope that we come up with a way to get some type of street closure so we can all enjoy this holiday in a very festive way. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. All righty, anyone else?
All right, I want to express my support for the proposal to make our streets safer on Halloween by closing or hard or soft a cluster of streets so the kids will be able to delight in their evening without worrying about being hit. Our street lights are inadequate. Last Halloween, I went out with my yellow bike jacket and flashlights and headlamp in an attempt to eliminate the kids as they cross the street. And I'll answer your question. Having a volunteer out there just flagging people is not going to be successful. I have personal experience trying to manage that situation, and it doesn't work. Listening to what's going on here, what if we were to put out flyers, much like we do for the citywide garage sale as you come into town, that invites you to participate, highlights where the parking is, and I'm going to suggest that we expand the City Hall parking and the other options to possibly include like the church lots, see if they'd be willing to cooperate with us.
Yes.
So that we could provide them with a map of the closures, a map of where the parking is, a reminder to honor the daylight spaces and not to park in crosswalks, and to let them understand so that our police department is not caught between a rock and a hard place, welcoming people into town and not wanting to give tickets, letting them know we will give tickets so that they don't have to deal with whether or not they should be friendly. I can't read my writing. The variations that Marilyn suggested about, between 5 and 6, it would be this. Communication's a nightmare. I really, really don't suggest that we try and put variations like that in. Thank you.
All righty. Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, I forgot to say, and I would volunteer, and we enlisted another volunteer over here in the corner.
Hey.
I think of everybody in this room, I have trick-or-treated the most and the longest in this town. And it has gotten increasingly dangerous. And last year, I was horrified at the number of people who came and double parked and kids blinded by headlights because people are turning on their brights so they don't run over kids, but then you can't see anything. And it has gotten to a point where it is dangerous, especially on the web streets. And I am in full favor of closing the web streets, Klamath, Mendocino, Monterey, and Mariposa from San Bruno Avenue to Visitation. I think we should put temporary stop signs at every intersection on San Bruno Avenue and on Visitation. I think we should direct people when they come into town to park here, park at the bank, park, down below, and not in the neighborhood. The occasional person who has an emergency, like one fellow who, has to pick up his kid or whatever, make an exception, and they can slowly be, guided to their house if as an exception basis. But I think that it's time to do this, and I don't think that we should make it a big invitation for everybody in the world to come to Brisbane. This is already happening.
They already do.
I know, they already
Too
do.
much.
And it's a bit much. But this is Friday night. What's it going to be like next year when Halloween's on Saturday night? Because since COVID, it has expanded dramatically in Brisbane over what it was 10 years ago and what it was when I was a kid. And I worry about the toddlers, but the local toddlers are with their parents. But sometimes the big families that come from other places just let their kids run wild and all over the place. And it's not like we have nice, even streets and sidewalks like you do in a planned development. Brisbane it's easy to trip. Their sidewalks are kind of a little, there's trees, there's plants. So the more that we can make it safe for kids, the better. But I really do recommend that we put temporary stop signs at every intersection on those two streets so that people have to stop at every intersection. Put it right in the middle of the street. You put a stop sign there on a thing so that they know that they have to stop at every intersection. They can't just come barreling down Visitation or San Bruno Avenue. And that we have parking at the entrance to town with a flashing sign, park here. Just for information, sunset is at 6:12. Full dark is by 7:09. You know I was going to do that.
Terry asked me to look it up, so
I already did. Civil twilight ends at 6:38. So at 6 o'clock, it's still going to be kind of light out, but it'll be really shadowy. By 7 o'clock, it will be dark. Okay, just so you know.
Thank you, Michelle.
And I don't think we should have anything in the park that just adds a level of complication we don't need, and it will only be more so next year. Also, you have to remember that because it is a Friday night, many people will be having parties in town as well. So that adds another layer of complication. So, yeah. And I think till 9 o'clock is a bit late because most kids by then should be done trick-or-treating. Parents might not be.
All righty.
Through the chair, I just wanted to throw out an idea we were chatting about over here. Valley might be an interesting place to allow some temporary parking. It's not a very long walk from there. We don't allow it anyway. So that could open up another avenue.
I would say what Chris suggested with the churches, because we have a church on San Bruno and we have a church on Visitation. I think those are great places, to ask. Even maybe the lot behind BES. That's even closer than Valley is.
In my experience, people are very happy to provide this kind of help. Should be an issue.
All right. Emily?
Hello, Council.
Hand raised online.
Oh, yep. Jessica Aloft has got her hand raised, so I don't know if you want to go to her, but
All right. Well, since you're here, we'll get Jessica next.
thanks. All right, so thank you all for listening. Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Jeremy, for supporting this, and Sarah for bringing this to the Complete Streets Committee. As a person who lives on Mendocino, I speak for myself and my family, and I also speak as the person who's on the Complete Streets Safety Committee. A lot of your questions we did discuss and address while we were going through that in our committee meeting. We did recommend a soft closure with access from San Bruno in and out for those who are locals, emergency vehicles. I know that Commander Garcia and the staff within the city had a conversation regarding hard closure, and that's fine too. Adding Klamath is great, more the merrier. It's important to us to make sure that it is from 5 to 9 or 5 to 9:30, which was what the committee had suggested. It's not just tots. My child is 6, and she would prefer to be home watching everybody come by because it's safer. There are people who ride behind in their car and just follow their kids in the car down the street, not really paying attention to those who are, trick-or-treating, whether they are families with strollers or high school kids. There's adults who get dressed up. My whole family gets dressed up. It's a whole costume thing. So it's not an age restriction, really. Yes, of course, there's going to be smaller kids at around 5 because of the bedtime routines, but it is other older children, elementary school age children showing up between 5 and 6:30 as well. So I hope that you explore that. To Frank's point and Madison's, yep, Costco taking a poll, 800 pieces gone by 7:30 last year.
Yeah.
And started at 5, right? So you start at 5 and you're done by 7:30. You're turning your lights off and you're going inside. And the kids are, we had kids come back the next morning, hey, you got more candy? It's like, no, Halloween's over. So it's important to the community because the houses around where I live, everybody puts out beautiful decorations, really get into it. That's what draws the families out. I've never gone up to Klamath, but I know there was a haunted house up that direction one year or many years. So I know that there's getting into the streets and seeing the families and seeing the different houses is important to those who come trick-or-treating. We've got one thing I think, Commander Garcia, I'd like you to add. There's that alley of Napa that comes into Mendocino. I think that needs to be marked as a hard closure as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because they could sneak in, all the way through.
That's a good point.
So perhaps adding that. I don't think I saw a sign on that one. And then some parents, and I am part of the reason why I bought my daughter tonight, is we wanted to be proactive. So we wanted to talk to our neighbors and see what they were saying. And so we talked to over 132 residents and trick-or-treaters in town. Many of them, over 90 of them live on these streets, and they were all in favor of the closure of the streets. So I think, they all signed a petition saying, yep, we want the city to close it. And if they don't, they're in favor of the temporary, permit to close it. And I think even if you don't close it, Mariposa is going to close down because they've already got enough signatures. Mendocino is going to close down. So why not get behind it if the residents, there was no no's when we went out and talked. Some people weren't home because it was the holiday weekend. And so I think we've already started the communications. I think that word of mouth will be useful, as well as not sending out a Bay Area-wide PR release, but having, put something into the blast or into the Star News or, a map of where the parking is. Having the churches is great. We also talked about using that lot that's next to the teen center. That's why Mariposa wasn't shut down, or San Bruno wasn't shut down between Mariposa and San Francisco, so that there could be parking next to the teen center as well.
Yeah.
So there were we threw out a bunch of ideas at the committee, and then also making sure that there were people or signs saying, park here, pull over here, park here, walk in this way. Really inviting people in, but also making sure. Trick-or-treating doesn't happen up at the Ridge. Everybody I've talked to says, we don't trick-or-treat. We come down here to these streets. People up in the hills on Kings and Humboldt, we don't trick-or-treat. No one's walking up here to come and get candy. We go down to you guys. So I really think it would be great if y'all would consider closing down the streets and really celebrating it year after year. I know this year could be a pilot year, but as Jeremy said, I think you'll get some great feedback from parents and families that it was what it was. Because everybody I talked to on the street said, why hasn't this been done? We were so in favor of it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Jessica, you got the floor.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm so sorry I'm not there. I'm quite sick, and I don't think you want my germs, so I just thought I'd zoom in. I love this conversation. Thank you, City Council, for getting this on the agenda so quickly. It's kind of a bit of a, rush between August and Halloween, but Jeremy and the Complete Streets Committee, everybody's been wonderful and really getting behind this, which is so exciting. I think when Emily and I talked about this first, we had talked about closing the pie, which the concept was those 4 streets that Michelle mentioned. She called it the web, I call it the pie, the 4 streets between Biz and San Bruno up to including Klamath, which Councilmember Kern also flagged. So to me, that's ground zero. Like, that is it. We have to do something about those streets, not only for young kids and families and large groups with strollers and elderly grandparents and the rest of it, but also for those middle schoolers who are out between 8 and 9 and the high schoolers, and they're running around in the dark. They run across the street. They're not paying attention to what's happening because they're excited about Halloween. So to me, that is the absolute must-have, that kind of core pie area. And we talked a lot about overflow parking. I love all the ideas that have come up here tonight. I think there's been some great new ideas generated on overflow parking. I also love Chris's idea of handing out flyers at the entrance to town.
Really good.
I think it was Councilmember Davis who said that'd be a great idea for the yak. All this energy and, great ideas for how to make this the best it can be. I'm just so excited to see this. So thank you all for your energy and vision. One thing that I've thought a lot about, and I've never figured out how to do this, but if there could be some way to invite people who live on the ridge and in the upper streets of Brisbane who would like to participate in what happens in central Brisbane, but don't maybe have people they can go hang out with or, friends or whatever. If there's some way to integrate that energy, I know there are people on the upper streets of central Brisbane who would like to come down to town and participate. We can create those pathways, for example, with the volunteering. Commander Garcia mentioned the 9 points of entry and having one person per spot as a minimum, but maybe there's some way to create little pods of volunteers that people can be invited to join and bring their lawn chairs and bring their flags and flashlights. And it gives an opportunity for other people to come in and join the celebration who may not be able to otherwise. I think that's all I have to say. Sorry for my awful voice, but thank you guys for taking this up so quickly. I hope we can do something at least this year and get this rolling.
All right, thank you, Jessica. Hope you feel better. Hi.
Hi, I'm Shalina. I think I'm last. So I want to thank everyone for this. So I actually support this. And I know no one has died on Halloween or any kids or anything. But I will say I am a parent that seeks out other communities that do have road closures. And for us parents, it decreases the anxiety. Like I can go home and sleep at night and not have a headache. But to be honest, in Brisbane, I have a lot of anxiety around this because my kids do run around. They're super excited, and the cars, they're coming down the road. They go through the stop signs, and I've actually seen the police, pull a couple of them over, which is great. But it would decrease the anxiety. The other thing is, when I do go to like San Carlos for the Christmas lights, they close the roads off. And parking is a mess, but they have signs for people who don't live in San Carlos. So we're able to figure out where parking is. So that was also a great idea. And I'm going to keep it short and just say I support the idea. I usually don't support or come to these events, but I really like this one, so I support this one. Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty, anybody? Paul?
Paul Buscal, Brisbane resident. Thank you, council. It's kind of like confession. It's been a while. So it's nice to be here. I want to thank everybody involved. Commander Garcia and Tomas and Karen Kinzer and, everybody that's put this together, and Sarah and members of the public that brought this forward. And we spent time talking about it and wanted to make sure that it was going to be the safest possible plan that we could do. And what we came up with the hard closure was the safest. May not be the most convenient, but it's only one time a year and just for a handful of hours. And I guess I was volunteered to be a volunteer. So
You're locked in now.
I have a question for Commander Garcia. I have a police uniform, and I wanted to know if I can borrow
It's Halloween after all.
borrow my wife's handcuffs.
You can definitely
and,
wear it.
carry pepper spray. So thank you.
Rated event, Paul. Come on up.
Council members, I think this is a brilliant idea. One thing that I would like to see, since we may have access to the church parking lots, to have volunteers stationed down there when those things get filled, that there's some sort of direction of traffic elsewhere so they don't, start messing around in that. And I am volunteering, so.
Thank you.
Sounds like we're going to need walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Add that to the supply list.
All righty. All right, anyone else online who would like to make a comment? right, I don't see anyone raising their hand. Everyone in the audience? Okay, so, council discussion. So, Councilmember O'Connell.
I have some real concerns on closing it as early as 5 before parents can get home on a Friday night. It's not going to be dark yet because the time change doesn't happen till November. I'd be more comfortable with it happening at 6. I know some people are out with their really little children before then, but they're usually accompanied by a parent, and they aren't quite as quick as the high schoolers. I have concerns about I understand the web streets, the curved streets being closed, and I do think that if you're going to do it, it probably should extend to Klamath.
Yeah.
But I think that it's going to be difficult to completely close San Bruno Avenue, and it might be better to have stop signs at each stop sign or at each intersection there instead. Otherwise, the church parking lot will not be accessible. Some of the other parking will not be accessible if San Bruno is closed completely. And that really is one of the main thoroughfares in town. And I think that that would almost need to have where you close off San Bruno down at Bayshore Avenue to be able to successfully divert traffic around a hard closure on San Bruno Avenue. So, there's some concerns. I do think that we're going to be very limited with our police presence to be able to accommodate this. When Sierra Point Road does its block party and it closes off one long block, just that has implications for people not being able to get home with their groceries during the day. And, we make sure everyone on that block knows, but it's still, an inconvenience for people. And to do it for a 3 or 4 hour period, on a Friday night when people are coming home from work, I think we really need to look at how we're doing this so it implements it properly and that we're not getting too much staff time and police time and volunteers and all that. So, initially I had some very serious concerns about this. I understand that a lot of the parents really want it and want to see this event to be a free-for-all in the streets where people can be safe and not worry. There's still worries. There's still dangers out there, whether it's from cars or other things. So, we'll see where the other discussion goes on this. But I think that if we completely close San Bruno, that it would make it much harder for us to control traffic and have people where they can actually get to where there may or may not be parking.
All right, Councilmember Davis.
Cool. So I just want to thank everyone for speaking and coming tonight and engaging with us. There's so many people who wrote us emails, and for Sarah and Jessica who really took the initiative to get this going. These kinds of ideas and energy is what makes Brisbane a great place to live. So thank you for all the time that you've put in. I absolutely think we have to include Klamath. To me, that was like one of the top, as a kid, that was like, I was trick-or-treating on Klamath probably more than I was trick-or-treating on Mariposa. And last year I went to Klamath and it was still popping on Klamath. So I would say that we definitely have to include Klamath. I think we have to include San Bruno. That's where our biggest offenses on driving is, aside from visitation, but I think San Bruno is maybe worse. People have so much speed on San Bruno, and so I think it's essential that we close San Bruno. However, so I would say you close San Bruno at Klamath down, but the church parking lot is at Alvarado and San Bruno.
That's one
So-
of the churches.
Yeah, one of the well,
There's the other church a little bit farther down. So you're right.
oh,
Catholic
the one
church.
on Mendocino. No
Guadalupe.
one's accessing that church parking no matter what. Like that's in the closure zone. So that's not going to happen. And that the way that church is set up is that you have to stack cars behind each other. So it's not really set up where there's spaces where someone could pull in and then they could pull out and go. So that's really not a great lot to use, but there is that church on Visitation that I think is a great option. So if we had, since Alvarado will be open, if you're coming up San Bruno, you can make a left on Alvarado and come down and then find parking on Visitation if you wanted to. I think like we shouldn't do anything as a city on San Francisco. We need to take that street off of the list. In my opinion, that's critical parking. And because of that, I would say that we should not include Plumas either. And I would say that we should, if we're going to close Mariposa, I would close it to Plumas. So that if you're looking at the diagram, essentially the side of the A, the top of the A, and the middle of the A is, I think, should be open. I don't see that very, very last piece of Mariposa towards San Francisco being a very hot trick-or-treating spot. I think like it's important that we have the closures, but I also think we need to have enough streets open for overflow parking for residents that can't make it back in time. And so we should really concentrate our closures to the streets that really have the most impact. To follow up on Terry's point, like I'm in a duplex, my neighbor is elderly, there's no way. Like he's not going to get home by 5 o'clock. And at that time that he's coming, there's probably not going to be any street parking left. So I think we also have to be sensitive to elderly people who live on these streets, and they're coming and now with mobs of people, and they've been accustomed to being able to come home and pull in their driveway. And so because of that, I think that starting at 5, while it makes it safer for the little ones, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that we have people that are trying to get home from work, and just to start it at 5, you're losing right at the very start for that particular issue. So I would be in favor of a more 5:30 or 6 o'clock start, so at least people have the chance to get home. And I would say the bulk of time that I think is crucial is 6 to 8. At 8 o'clock, like I'm out of candy and I'm shutting up. I'm shutting down, and that's it. And it really, really starts to die off at that point. Not just because like kids are going home, but because people have run out of candy. So you can't really trick or treat if there's no candy left. And so I see a lot of my neighbors also closing up around that time. So sure, there's still going to be older kids out. They're probably just like the energy of being out at night with their friends, but I do feel like the trick-or-treating really does start dying down. As somebody who's using a stroller these days, I have to use the street. And that's something that people haven't brought up. There are some spots on Mendocino where I can push a stroller, but if I'm going from Mendocino to where Alvarado curves, I cannot push a stroller on that street. I have to be in the street because there are posts and it's very inadequate sidewalks there. So I do think that there are going to be a lot of people that are out that are going to have to use the street, even though it's not an ideal situation. But if you have a stroller, you just can't navigate a lot of these streets, unfortunately. So I think it's going to make it safer for the people who are taking little ones with them. But I think it's like a 6 o'clock start time, or even 5:30, 5:45 is a good compromise.
All right. Great suggestions. So, Councilmember Kern.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone that worked on this and all the ideas that have been brought forward. I agree with Councilmember Davis. I don't think that this particular plan works unless Klamath is closed as well. Klamath is a street with a beautiful canopy of trees, one of the nicest ones in Brisbane, but therefore it makes it the darkest in this
Yeah.
whole pie segment. And it's also a little bit skinnier than others. If we don't close Klamath, we'll be forcing cars down that street and literally doing no service to the trick-or-treaters that will be on that street. They like to trick-or-treat there. So I think that's a critical inclusion that sort of makes this work. I'm also not a fan of having the event at the park. I think it's just overkill. Let's just run out the door here with a minimum viable product. Let's test and learn, and then just keep enhancing as we go forward. I think this is a pretty solid idea. I'm looking at Caroline, and I'm looking at Jeremy, and I'm looking at Christina, and I'm looking at Commander Garcia. This is going to require, on your behalf, world-class communication. You guys are going to have to figure this out in every single way and get this out.
Fast, tomorrow.
Fast, and so people know that if they need to work from home on Friday, what a great day to work from home. If they need to come home early on Friday, and these are just our residents, but we need to make sure that the signage is appropriate. This is going to take a lift, so I'm just calling that out. And I can't stress enough about testing and learning. Let's just try this. If we break a couple eggs and people are inconvenienced, they're inconvenienced. We can do some different things next year. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councilmember Kern. Councilmember Mackin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was approached on this at first, I said, why wouldn't we close the whole V? And I still think that. And I think one thing that's being missed here, so let's say we have Bank of America parking, let's say we have parking at City Hall, and we're worried about people walking around in the dark. They're going to be on our busiest 5 Points intersection and Old County in the dark. And we're not thinking about that. So personally, I would close Old County completely. And as our city manager suggested, in fact, I would say to residents, there will be resident parking at City Hall for residents. And then I would bring in any public through Valley Drive and say, Halloween visitors parking. And figure out where they go. So there's 2 separate parkings, because what I see as the travesty here would be people up on Alvarado looking for the church parking lot, or going up Visitation and trying to figure out how to turn around with kids crossing those streets. And I think we're not thinking about the peripheral areas. If you're going to close it, just close it. And then we have merchants at Brisbane Village Shopping Center may not be happy about it. Merchants on Visitation may not be happy about it. But I think if you're going to close it, you've got to close it. And we're leaving the peripheral areas very unsafe, because you're going to have more people looking for where they're supposed to park. So like an event, you've got to have people with flags going, you're parking, you're going this way. That's it. You don't go anywhere else. That's one way you're going to get to go, and nothing else. But I think just to calm the residents, they need to have resident parking that's closer. And then I'll throw this out there. You may hate this part. If you're going to park visitors out on Park Lane or Valley Drive, maybe you need to utilize the city shuttle and shuttle them over here, because you've also got kids walking in the dark alone. So if you really want it safe, you got to think about what you're doing to keep it safe, or are you ignoring what the problem you're creating around it? And I think that might help. Maybe someone else has a better idea, but my 2 cents.
All right, no, all the suggestions are great. Yeah, I want to thank all the parents and citizens who sent us the emails and the letters and coming here tonight. I think you're really onto something. I think we can create a fantastic experience for our citizens, as well as people coming to Brisbane. I don't think there's anything wrong with showing off your town. We all leave Brisbane and go someplace else. So why not have folks come to our town and see what it's like to experience what we have to offer. Just looking at this map, I agree with you about not having the U-turns. And I think that we need to bring it all the way down San Bruno to the hardware store. But opening up San Francisco to Alvarado and then coming up Alvarado, that gives a way to circulate around the outside of the zone. And then having Klamath be part of the zone makes sense. So, you know, the volunteers. So I see you got a look on your face, Madison. So
Sorry, I'm so bad at hiding my face.
no, it's all good. So having done the San Bruno Mountain Half Marathon and bringing people in, granted, it's not the same volume of people, but we prepare to have, a lot of people come. And so when people come into town, we have folks directing at the corner of Old County and Park to not come into Brisbane. We direct them out to the Crocker Park. And so I think, directing out-of-towners to not even come into central Brisbane initially is a smart thing to do. And, I do like the soft closure at from 5 to 6, because I think we need to let folks in, but only locals coming in, right? So you're really clear. It's like, yeah, if you live on these streets, yeah, you can come in. But if you don't live here, we don't want you to park on these streets, because you're going to be taking parking away from people who are coming home from work who live here. So, Madison, I saw the look on your face in regards to San Francisco being able to drive on that and park, right? And it sounds like that's something that you said was a good thing.
Oh no, I was reacting for San Bruno down to San Francisco.
So,
the closure of that doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so if someone comes up that, how are they going to be able to get, out?
They'd have to do a U-turn.
I mean, yeah, but like, how would it be at anywhere? Like, people are going to be U-turning. At any closure, you're going to be seeing U-turns.
They don't have to. They don't have to if that's blocked. They can come down San Francisco and then make a right turn onto Alvarado, come up the backside of Alvarado to San Bruno, and then they can leave from there. So
you're saying you want to close that block off just simply so people don't U-turn?
Yes, because I tell you, when you go to races, and I see Jerry here, there's been, like, you go to CIM and it's a mess when you're going and then you have to make a U-turn when you're dropping people off. It doesn't work. So if they're already being directed to not come down this street, you have solved a problem that will be a headache. That will be the one place where people go, oh yeah, that was a pain in the ass. So, but if you can direct them to go down San Francisco, or you can come up Visitation, those streets are fine. But this zone should be closed off, but you should be able to access it around the outside of it. Just from my experience in dealing with events, that seems to be the best way to have the traffic flow.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I would defer to the police on what's best traffic flow, but like, I could even see us using the 23 Club parking lot as like another parking lot, and and then the teen center site is like another parking area. And so now that's getting, I just think like we're just eliminating more and more. I think I want to be sensitive to wanting to be safe, and I think that we will come up with something that's safe, but I also want to be sensitive to like all the people who are now shifting, who can't make it back in time, who are shifting outside, and we're pushing them further and further and further away from their house. I just don't think it's realistic to think that a family with little kids is going to park on Valley and walk all the way up to Mendocino. No way.
There's only so many parking spots at the teen center side and the 23 Club. It will get filled up lickety split.
Yeah, but it's just I'm not saying that's the only parking, but it's like we're taking more and more spots, and on that entire street, we're taking more and more spots off the table.
You know, really what we're doing, we're suggesting things. It is
Well, what does the
Commander
police think?
Garcia
Yeah, I mean,
who will
that's
evaluate,
usually-
right? So just putting it out there.
So, having listened to all of you, I think I do agree with Mayor. When you go to events, and although you, as much as you want to offer choices of pockets of parking, those eventually fill up really fast. And no matter what, whether you say it's full or not, or people think it's full, the next person is going to go, no, I can get there and wait for somebody to pull out. So the hardest thing to do is keeping it simple. So you give them a funnel, they go in one way, or so many areas to go in, straight lines, and it makes it so much easier for cars to navigate that. Because once you get in those funnels, they will back up in there. I have to say that will. Although we want to please everybody and offer as many spots as we can, sometimes when you don't give someone a choice, it's hard enough for some people to make a choice left or right to go home, let alone give them a parking spot or 5 spots over here or 10 spots over here. So I do agree with keeping that entire zone closed off so that you can access all the areas and around. And it is only for that one evening and limiting the hours down to, if I may say, 6 to 8. It's 2 hours. And if that's the major portion of, where everyone trick-or-treaters are at 2 hours, limits your candy exposure. And then people are still out by 8 o'clock. You're going to generally have teenagers out or people that are, already older. So, but in regards to the traffic, I do believe that keeping it simple, alleviating those funnels where people are going to make U-turns or vehicles would relieve a lot.
So then what do you say about Klamath at San Bruno?
Klamath at San Bruno, you can still close that all down, the part of San Bruno, because they do have Alvarado and Visitation on the outskirts of the whole zone to kind of navigate themselves around.
To make a U-turn? Because you're still going to need to make a U-turn.
Need a U-turn or go all the way completely around. I mean, and but it keeps them away from these small pockets.
Yeah, you could also have volunteers directing people not to come down San Bruno after Alvarado. Right, you just say, if you're local, you can go to Klamath, that's it. But what you're doing is you're trying to eliminate the out-of-towners from coming in and taking up parking spots and
Or cruising, looking for parking.
Exactly, right? So, I really like what you were saying, Frank, about, this is a pilot program, let's keep it as simple as possible. I like the 2-hour thing, and see how it goes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in terms of soft closures and having volunteers, when you ask someone where they live, and they may say, I live on Alvarado, and everyone catches on that they'll let you go if you call somebody, hey, tell me you live on Alvarado, or tell them you live on, or I'm sorry, Mariposa, and they'll let you through. So I'm not in favor of any soft closures because of that portion only. Obviously, as volunteers, I don't want someone asking for someone's driver's license, which may not even, one, they don't have to produce it because it's an event, and 2, people may not have changed their license yet. So if you're going to close it, close it.
Got it. Okay. All right. No, that makes sense. So what about when folks from out of town are arriving early? Should we start to direct them to, Crocker Park at 5?
I think the signage and CMS signs will allow them to know that there's the closure between the, that robust message is going to be huge, that they know that if they come in, they're trapped. They're going to be trapped for 2 hours. Just hunker down and wait till the streets open back up again.
Is that our only sign? Because I feel like I'm going to come in and miss that. Like, I think there needs to be a sign right by the hardware store.
We may have a second, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have 2, yes. 2
That's
CMS
the place where I think the sign needs to be.
So I have a question. Are we trying to whittle down every nuance to this, or are we trying to give suggestions to staff?
That's good.
You know how we are, Terry. We like to get into the weeds.
I think we've already gotten into the weeds, but I think that we've
Let staff
also
figure it out.
charged staff and the police department with the nuances. And I think we're starting to go down that road where we are trying to overanalyze this beyond what not our capabilities, but our forte is. And we're going to need to leave that up if we give direction to go ahead with this program. We're going to need to give them general parameters because we can't put all of this into the nitty gritty unless we want to be here for another 2 or 3 days.
Exactly. So, okay, so let's stick to the hours. So
6 to 8.
what do we feel good about? Okay, so Madison, you're saying 6 to 8.
Or 5:30. I think 5's too early.
I think 5's too early.
Okay, so what would you like?
5:30 or later. I think probably
I would
6.
like 6 o'clock personally.
Still.
I think that you could have the barriers ready to go with signage that's going to be applicable and let people know that this is a hard closure and that you're not getting back out.
Okay, so 6 to 8 is what, or 6 to 9? What
You know, by 9 o'clock, it's pretty much ghost town. I forgot my phone at her house last Halloween. And so after walking home, I realized I didn't have my phone and I drove back and the lights were out everywhere.
Yeah.
And I figured she was asleep and I couldn't call her to find out. So I went back home and waited till the next day.
Okay.
But there was nobody out at 9. I mean, a couple people that might still be at the bar, but nobody on my route.
6 to 8.
There is no candy
6
left
to
at 9.
8.
6 to 8. 6
Yeah,
to
no
8.
candy left.
There's
6
none.
to 8. It's
Except at my
bone
house.
dry.
Councilmember Mackin, hours?
6 to 8.
Okay. Councilmember Kern.
I say 6 to 8 with one caveat. I know we're trying to simplify this here. What about the out-of-towners that are already parked on these streets?
Fine.
Get out.
They got lucky.
They
How
gotta
are they
wait.
supposed to get out?
they
It's,
can't.
okay. Okay.
They're going to have to make friends.
Commit.
Okay.
They can go to our restaurants.
All right.
And,
so
and our public bathroom.
does staff have enough direction?
I think we do. I think we're in really good shape. We appreciate all of the suggestions and you know, taking away from this, the balance between having a wonderful event and making sure people have access to their homes. Safety is paramount. We will ensure through the use of our communication tools, volunteers, signage, et cetera, to maximize the number of people who know what's going on. You know, you're in good hands with Caroline as it relates to communication. So I think we got it.
Okay, great.
I would just say to staff, if we are station people out earlier than 6 to 8, right? Like 5, especially the people who are giving out the maps. And there should be something, if you park in this zone, you're committed to being there until 8, just so you know. So that's got to be part of the messaging for people who are coming in from out of town.
All right. Okay. So, thank you all for providing comments, and we'll move on to the next item, which is item N. Consider adoption of City of Brisbane and GVMID resolutions approving Tier 2 Drought Response Implementation Plan pursuant to Section 3.11C of the amended and restated water supply agreement and approving an amendment to the amended and restated water supply agreement between the City and County of San Francisco and wholesale customers in Alameda County, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County.
Mr. Mayor, before we jump in, I'm sorry, you guys got up already. This may be a lengthy item because I think I'm anticipating a lot of questions. Could we take a 5-minute break?
Absolutely.
Please.
Let's- Jerry, come on up, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. Jerry Flanagan, Deputy Director of Public Works for Utilities. This evening, we are presenting two resolutions for your consideration for each of our two individual water districts, City of Brisbane and Guadalupe Valley Municipal Improvement District. To help provide background and walk through the key details of these resolutions, I'd like to introduce Danielle McPherson, who is here representing the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, also known as BOSCA. Danielle?
Thank you, Jerry. And I believe we have a presentation that'll be pulled up. Excellent, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present these two water supply reliability actions for you tonight. Next slide. So for a bit of context, I'm going to start with a very high-level overview of the water supply agreement between San Francisco and the wholesale customers, of which you are one, and specifically the pieces that relate to the amendments or the resolutions that you'll consider tonight. And then I'll take time to walk through the different changes that are being proposed. Next slide. Okay, so the water supply agreement between San Francisco and the wholesale customers, it's your water supply contract. The main thing that it does is it allocates costs between the retail customers and the wholesale customers collectively. There are two pieces I want to call out tonight that are related to the amendments. The first is minimum purchase requirements. These apply to 4 agencies with access to imported supplies other than San Francisco. I'll get into the details of that in following slides. The second one has to do with droughts. So the water supply agreement has a tier 1 shortage allocation plan, which allocates water between the San Francisco retail customers and the wholesale customers collectively during system-wide shortages caused by drought. The WSA also allows the wholesale customers to develop a plan for allocating that tier 1 supply made available to them collectively amongst themselves. Last thing I want to add here is that BOSCA has administrative authority or administrative responsibilities and delegated authority on the WSA, but we are not a party to the contract. Next slide. Okay, so there are 2 actions for you tonight. The first is an updated tier 2 drought response implementation plan, or tier 2 plan for short. That is a contract among the wholesale customers. The second one is an amendment to the water supply agreement, and that includes San Francisco. We have this Venn diagram here because, as I'll explain in a later slide, getting agreement on the updated tier 2 plan required expanding the scope of the agreement to include amendments to the WSA, or water supply agreement. And that's why they're coming together as a package tonight. Next slide. Okay, so diving into it, I kind of went over this at a high level, but this graphic helps describe the tier 1 and tier 2 plans. So San Francisco, when they determine there's a shortage emergency on the regional water system, the tier 1 plan allocates water to the retail customers, and then that gray slice of the pie is what goes to the wholesale customers collectively. The tier 2 plan is then allocating that available supply among the 26 wholesale customers. I mentioned this before, but these 2 plans only apply during system-wide shortages caused by drought, and specifically droughts of 20% or less. 2 other things to add here is that excess use charges for agencies that use more than their shortage allocation are only applied during mandatory rationing scenarios. And one key helpful tool in the tier 1 and tier 2 plans is that you may transfer or sell shortage allocations and banked water amongst yourselves and with San Francisco. So if you were to conserve more than you were asked to, you could sell that shortage allocation to another wholesale customer. Or you can bank it if it's a multi-year drought for the next year. I think that's all here. Next slide. Okay, so the existing tier 2 plan was adopted in 2011. It was implemented for the first time during the 2021 through 2023 drought. At that time, we realized that the existing plan was no longer operating as it was intended to. Just in that 10 years of time, a lot has changed about water use on the regional water system. Total use is down. There's a couple other nuanced things I could get into, but the wholesale customers at that time determined that it was time to reevaluate the tier 2 plan. So BOSCA began facilitating an update to the shortage allocation plan in January of 2022. Next slide. And that process, you can imagine getting unanimous agreement among 26 agencies on how to share shortage allocation water. Took a long time, 2.5 years to be exact. We drug the 26 agencies into half-day or full-day meetings in person every month for that 2.5 years. The first step in the process was for each agency to identify a lead negotiator that would represent their agency's interests. And I can tell you that Jerry Flanagan was at every single meeting advocating for the best outcome for your constituents. He was very actively engaged.
Thank you, Jerry.
The second thing that they did was adopt policy principles. So the idea here was before they start divvying up shortage allocations or shortage water, what are some principles that the plan should achieve? Coming to an agreement on that first and having that guide the process. So next slide. Those 4 policy principles are first to ensure enough water for basic health and safety needs, to avoid adverse economic impacts during droughts, to provide predictability in drought allocations so that you can plan and prepare in advance, and then also to not disincentivize previous investments in conservation, efficiency, and development of drought resilient supplies. Next slide. Okay, so this at a very high level describes how water is allocated through the Tier 2 plan. This is a very simplified version. The first step is to establish minimum and maximum cutbacks. The minimum ensures that each agency is doing their part to achieve the overall wholesale reduction, but the maximum ensures that no single agency is overly burdened. The first 3 steps in the allocation of the plan are based on your actual use pre-drought. So there's a portion of water that's allocated based on your residential use. There's a portion based on your commercial non-residential base use. And then a very small amount is allocated for seasonal uses, which folks think of irrigation, but it's actually what's important for those South Bay agencies that have a lot of cooling towers where it gets really hot. So there's a very small amount of water allocated for that. And then the final step in the process is a weighted share of base period purchases, so your purchases before the drought, and your individual supply guarantee. Next slide. Okay, so like I said, to get unanimous agreement among 26 agencies was quite a lift. And we had to expand the pie to include 2 amendments to the water supply agreement. And that's with the Tier 1 shortage allocation plan, which I'll describe next, and then also the minimum purchase quantities. This plan, the Tier 2 plan, must be unanimously adopted by all 26 agencies. Once it is adopted, then it would go into effect the next time there is a drought. Next slide. Okay, so getting into the WSA amendments. The first is an amendment to the Tier 1 plan. This is what we're calling a Tier 1 excess use charge family plan. That's a mouthful. You can think about this like your cell phone family plan. If you collectively stay below your Tier 1 allocation, no individual agency that exceeds their individual allocation would be applied an excess use charge. So in this example, we've really simplified it from the 26 down to just 4 agencies. The blue bar is the shortage allocation, the yellow bar is the drought use, and then on the far right we have total use. And in this hypothetical example, agencies A and C have exceeded their individual allocation, but you can see on the right, collectively they are below. So in this scenario, no individual agency would have an excess use fee if it were a mandatory rationing scenario. Next slide. Okay, so this is an example of if they collectively exceed the Tier 1 allocation. So in that case, excess use fees would be applied proportionally to the total overuse. So in this example, again, agencies A and C have exceeded their individual allocation by 1 million gallons per day and 1.5 million gallons per day, or MGD, respectively. But you can see on the right that collectively they were only over by 1 MGD because agencies B and C were under. So instead of agency A having an excess use charge based on that 1 MGD, it would be their portion of the 1 MGD total overage, so just under 1 MGD. You can see the far right column of the table here. So San Francisco conceded this change without taking anything back, so it's just a straight win for the wholesale customers. It's really useful new feature. Next slide. Okay, so on to the minimum purchase requirements. These, like I said, apply to 4 agencies with access to imported supplies other than San Francisco. These have existed since the 1960s. They were adjusted downwards in 2009 to reflect lower water use or actual water use at that time. And what we've found now is that it's time to reassess that and set those minimum purchase quantities at levels that reflect current water usage. And maybe I should just also clarify here that these are minimum take or pay requirements. So your customers either use the water or not, but you have to pay that minimum amount of water. There's one agency in particular that every year for the last decade has not met their minimum purchase requirement, and that's not because they're source shifting to other cheaper supplies. It's that they have invested so heavily in conservation, efficiency, they've developed recycled water, they just don't have the demand in their service area to use the water they're required to purchase, And so they receive a bill in the $4-ish million a year. The cost of water has gone up since the 2000s, 2010, I think, is when they first started getting these charges. So even, they're not the only agency whose total demand on the regional water system has gone down. Overall, we're looking at lower demand with improvements in efficiency, but the regional water system is still subject to severe drought. Next slide. Okay, so the minimum purchase, the changes, there are 3 to the minimum purchase quantities, and I'll go through them pretty quickly, and we can circle back with any questions about details, but next slide. Okay, like I said, we are proposing to reset these minimum purchase quantities to reflect current usage, and that calculation is setting them at 80% of purchases from the most recent 4 non-drought years. That method is consistent with how they were set in the 1984 Master Water Sales Contract. Next slide. The second one is a temporary drought rebound minimum purchase quantity. So during a drought, you ask your customers to conserve, they change out turf, they install low flow toilets. When we exit the drought emergency, they don't all just go back to using water how they did pre-drought. So what this does is it sets this temporary lower minimum purchase quantity to acknowledge that fact and allow their customers to rebound to pre-drought levels, if they ever do. The next slide. All right, the third one is another family plan, and I'm not going to get tongue twisted because it's similar in structure, but it's actually the opposite way. So, and it's separate completely from the Tier 1 family plan. In this case, if the 4 original minimum purchase customers collectively purchase at least the sum of minimum purchase quantities, an individual agency that did not meet their individual minimum purchase quantity would not be charged imputed sales. That's what we call when they get charged for water they don't use. So if one agency, Alameda County, exceeds their minimum purchase quantity, but Mountain View is below, if that's offset, then Mountain View doesn't pay for water their customers could not use. Next slide. Okay, so we did a cost-benefit analysis on this, and there is a cost. It's quite minimal. It's between less than 1 cent and 4 cents per CCF. That reflects 0.13% to 0.72% increase volumetrically. But there are really large benefits to this. The main one here is that we're moving a barrier for those customers to invest in local drought resilient supplies. They are particularly well suited to do that. They're large agencies. They manage their own wastewater, which means they can develop recycled water without multi-party complicated agreements or partnerships. They all have access to groundwater. And many of them are developing some of these already, but when they're paying $4+ million a year on water they can't use, their city council is not likely to continue to invest in these supplies. But having them do so benefits all users of the regional water system. We have a storage-based system, so the more water that's left in storage is more water available for you in the following years. That means that the severity and the frequency of drought is lower. And the last benefit to this is that we're not charging agencies or cities for water their customers can't use, and they're instead investing those dollars in other areas. And I believe that actually concludes my presentation. Next slide. Yes. Okay, so there are 2 recommended actions for you tonight. The first is to approve the amendments to the water supply agreement. And next slide is to approve the resolution, approving the Tier 2 drought response implementation plan. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm available for any questions.
Well, thank you for the very thorough presentation, Danielle. Having the slides really helps to understand the complexities of the subject matter. So we'll start on this side. Councilmember Mackin, do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. This presentation and all of the material we were given, I'm a little bit in awe because I can understand the hours this took. This is really very impressive. But I have one question. We had a situation where commercial laundry moved to Brisbane. They're here. If we had another business move to Brisbane that became a water user that we didn't know that's what they were going to do, or our city, other cities that have a population increase, how often is this readjusted or reevaluated? Is there a mechanism built in so those anomalies can be reflected in that base? Because you're looking at the previous usage, which might change, obviously. And we have the commercial residential, which can be dramatically different. Our residential's pretty even, I think, from what I've observed over.
Yeah, so this is what we call the base period purchases. So that is what the calculation is based on, for lack of a better word, I apologize. And that is the purchases from the most recent 3 non-drought years. It actually takes the 2 highest years. So if you were to have a new business come in, that use would be reflected, and it would actually take the highest use of those 3 non-drought years to reflect those kind of anomalous years. And that is a rolling 3 years. So if it were to be implemented next year, it would be the most recent 3 non-drought years.
Thank you very much.
And also sorry, just one more thing. The second step in the allocation is based on your non-residential use. And so you would have a higher allocation in that, particularly if you had new commercial coming into the service area.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kern.
Very thorough presentation and a lot of information to digest. I just have a couple questions here today. So one of the items I was questioning is you said that you were looking at potentially adjusting the minimum annual purchase quantities in 10 years. So that's 2035. Can you just talk to me just a little bit about what a reverse timeline looks like? So 2035 is the goal. How do we bring that back to current, or what is that going to look like over the next 10 years?
Sure. I'd say that a typical WSA amendment is about a 2.5 to 3 year process. So if those agencies were interested in proposing a change, there's not an automatic adjustment, but if they wanted to propose a change, we'd have a pretty good head start looking at actual water use and if it was appropriate to adjust them again. But you'd probably be looking in the early 2030s.
Early 2030s. Okay, thank you. This is a basic question that I've learned to ask over the course of my life. What if we did nothing and we just went home tonight? What would happen if we just did absolutely nothing?
Sure. So for the 2 separate pieces, the Tier 2 plan, if you didn't do anything tonight and ever, the first action would be that the BOSCA Board of Directors would have the opportunity to adopt a Tier 2 plan. If they could not come to an agreement on that, then San Francisco would have the decision. And unfortunately, in that situation, they don't have to give you any heads up. It's simply they declare a drought and then they tell you how much you get, so you really wouldn't have the opportunity to plan and prepare in advance. For the WSA amendment, that also requires unanimous agreement. If you took no action tonight or later, that amendment would not go into effect.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a great answer. And then my last question is, I'm looking on page 194, and you've got something here called restriction on purchases of water from others, minimum annual purchases. A prohibition in subsection A does not apply to water necessary for an emergency or on a temporary basis. What does that mean? Is an emergency or a temporary basis?
Can I actually come back to you on that answer?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want to give an incorrect answer. I'd want to
Okay.
check with our legal team to confirm.
Okay, thank you so much. No more questions here.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Davis.
I don't have any questions.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you. We, as a subcommittee, had heard this report a month or so ago, and it gave us a lot of insight on, the other agencies that are involved in this, that are all negotiating with San Francisco. And I really want to thank you for the work you did because, San Francisco is a huge supplier of water and has all the power here. So having BOSCA on our team representing us really gives us some assurity of not just having rates increased unilaterally and maybe without any rhyme or reason. So, it's been really important to get this new agreement into the records and to make sure that, the minimum purchase requirements are just for those 4 agencies. It's not affecting us at all. But it does free up those gallons potentially to be used in other agencies or banked, for further resiliency. So I really appreciate all the hard work that Bosqua and our representative have done on this, and really understand the this being very crucial to solidifying the water agreement status between us and the big bad wolf.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's right, Nancy, you didn't have any, okay. Yeah, no, thank you for, the complex negotiating that went on and representing us, and it's a big deal. Of course, this is just in regards to the drought, so there were other issues involved, but as it pertains to this, 2.5 years, that's a lot of negotiating. That's a lot of back and forth, and that shows that you're paying attention and you're really, working hard on our behalf, and that's where that trust from us comes from, the hard work that you put into this, and it shows in this document. So appreciate everything that you've done. So I don't have any questions. It's kind of like one of the items that we just did about, the ADUs, it is what it is. And so let's see if there's anybody in the audience who might have a comment or a question. Paul?
Paul Buscal, Brisbane resident. I do have a comment. I was curious about our allocation for water usage overall for our system when we have to flush tens of thousands of gallons of water to keep our system healthy from the chloramine that can turn to trihalomethane is why we do a flushing program. So I didn't know if that was included in the allocation as far as discharge water that we have to just dump down the drain when we're flushing.
Okay, thank you. That's a really good point. Jerry, would you like to?
Yep. We do account for operational water. That is part of the demands that we allocate. So that would be anything that we do operationally, such as what Paul is talking about with the flushing the hydrants, the dead-end hydrants, cycling the tanks, anything operationally has been accounted for.
It's all built in.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
But those costs are not addressed in this water agreement in the blanket, that's in our operational day-to-day type of usage and not in this water agreement.
Okay, so Dan, you said we have 2 things that we need to adopt this evening. So the first is approve the revisions, including in the attached Exhibit A, to be incorporated into a revised water supply agreement titled the 2025 Amended and Restated Water Supply Agreement between the City and County of San Francisco. Wholesale customers in Alameda County, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County, dated as of 2025. So is that the exact wordage? That is, okay. Okay. And then the other one was it says the chair of the board is authorized and directed to execute the 2025 amended and reinstated water supply agreement when final execution copies are prepared and distributed by Bosqua. So you had mentioned that as well. Delegated authority. Okay. So if I can get a motion to approve that or adopt that.
I'll make a motion to approve both.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Think you so much. Okay. So it is 9 o'clock. I think we can get through the rest of the agenda by 9:30 or maybe a little bit over before we go into our workshop.
We're excited to continue. So
Okay, great. Well, then let's do it. Receive report on City of Brisbane volunteer initiatives and provide direction to staff. Christina.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Christina Fernandez, your Assistant City Manager. Could we pull up the presentation, please? Thanks, Molly. So online with me tonight is Molly Brown, Management Analyst, who has really been instrumental in getting much of this work done as well. So I just want to thank Molly for all of her efforts on this. So as you know, at your council meeting back in March, volunteerism was listed as one of your main priorities of the year. And as such, staff spent the last few months taking a deeper dive on what volunteerism currently means in Brisbane and what it could potentially look like. Next slide, please. So tonight we'll go over some background, existing volunteer opportunities, a community-wide survey, potential volunteer programs, a work plan, website examples, a timeline, and then get your feedback and discussion. But please feel free to interrupt me at any time during this presentation. I realize it is late, so I will try and be as expeditious as possible. Next slide, please. So volunteerism is a council priority, and we heard that loud and clear. We're building on that really strong foundation that Brisbane has as it relates to volunteerism, and we're strengthening our partnerships with residents, community organizations, and others to support really meaningful projects. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to hear from all of you, how you feel about the proposed initiatives and what you may want to see going forward. Next slide, please. So the city manager's office coordinated efforts to learn more about the various opportunities citywide. Currently, we learned that the city does a lot in a variety of areas, including sustainability, work with seniors, education, and adult literacy. And some of these programs, as listed on the slide, include invasive species removal, adopt a drain, leaders in training, planting in the community garden, participating in the age-friendly task force, and participating in committees and commissions. So there's a ton that's not reflective on this list that the city currently does. Next slide. And with that, staff really wanted to learn from the community, you know, what are folks passionate about? What do folks want to see? What does the community really need? So we opened up a community-wide survey on volunteerism, and it ran from August 4th through August 22nd. We kept it short, because I think short is better, it gets to the point. And we received 43 responses. The full survey results are attached to the staff report if folks are interested, but we'll go through some of the highlights in the following slides. Next slide, please. So our community-wide survey, what we heard was most respondents were interested in outdoor activities, including park cleanups, tree planting, invasive species removal, and habitat restoration. Folks were also interested in providing special event support at events like Day in the Park and Coastal Cleanup Days. Over 51% of our respondents were aware that that they could volunteer for the city, which is great. And of these, most of them learned of the opportunities through word of mouth, city newsletters like the Star, and community events. Fewer residents did mention social media, but that was just to a lesser extent. Next slide. We also posed an open-ended question where folks could fill in the blank and you know, give us sort of an open-ended answer. We asked if there were any issue areas or volunteer activities that folks would like to see the city consider offering. And a lot of it revolved around, like you'll see on the slide here, I won't read through all of them, but there was a desire for a fix-it clinic where residents can help others fix broken items. And thanks to Councilmember Kern for informing me that there was to be one tomorrow, but it was unfortunately postponed. Also to form a volunteer tree care program to help residents care for their trees and to promote a healthy tree canopy. Someone noted that the city staff may need some assistance, so it seems like we have folks in the community who are willing to help our city staff, which we would very much appreciate. We heard that there was a desire for a skill bank exchange where folks could, that maybe have an area of expertise, could maybe lend that expertise to other residents. Residents were also interested in contributing to the history of Brisbane. Another was open to expanding stewardship opportunities at open spaces like Brisbane Acres and the canyons. This would include invasive plant removal, native planting, and trail maintenance. Beautification and cleanup projects were noted. School and aftercare is also of interest. And someone noted an interest in recycling and minimizing waste, assisting with that. Next slide. So what staff did was we then went out to our departments and said, hey, you guys are doing a lot of really great work. What are some potential programs that we could implement and or expand upon? And so we looked at a wide variety of these programs and we said, okay, well, they fill primarily into 4 buckets: beautification, environmental stewardship, outreach/community events, and skill sharing. So as you can see there are a number of ideas, everything from flower planting at the community park, trash pickup at Crocker Trail, administrative support at the Sunrise Room, to a fix-it clinic. While staff has proposed some of these initiatives, we certainly would want your input as to what you would like to see moving forward. Any new ideas are also welcomed and appreciated. So I don't know if you want me to hit pause here and you want to maybe provide some input on some of this, or if you wanted me to wait until after.
I have a question.
Sure.
Both have a question.
What's plogging?
So it's my understanding that plogging is when you're walking, like you're just walking through town, and you see pieces of garbage, and you're picking up garbage as you're walking. It's like you're actively walking and exercising, but you're picking up garbage as like an active activity.
Yeah,
Don't you
That's
just
what Sue
always do
Cochran
that?
does.
Yeah, if you go to the Sawyer Camp Trail, they have buckets and the grabbers on a post, and people will enter the trailhead. They'll pick up a bucket and the grabber, and they'll go walking. And if they see garbage, they'll put it in the bucket. And then when they finish their walk, they dump the garbage into the garbage can, and then hang up the bucket and the grabber, and they go home. So it's giving back while they're getting some exercise on the trail.
I believe it's European of some sort.
Sounds European.
Yeah.
Do we not?
I thought it was a typo.
No.
Do we not
I
have
thought
that
so, too.
program in place today at some
You
level?
don't have buckets and
I just pick up garbage when I walk.
Well, we've got a grabber program, I'm pretty sure.
We have a
do.
very modest one, so it's
Yeah,
expanding.
okay,
Grabber
okay, so we
program?
would expand on that. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions or comments?
No, that was my question.
Okay. Next slide, please. So with that, staff is looking to, we want to ensure that we have both inward and outward facing tools to make sure that we create the most robust volunteerism program that we can. So we are proposing a number of things to make that happen. One is to build and maintain a project management dashboard, which you'll maybe see a couple of examples going forward in the next slide or so. Create a standardized volunteer interest form to build a repository of volunteers. This is really great such that you can really get a sense for what folks are interested in, and then, kind of shepherd them in that direction and say, oh, you're interested in sustainability. Well, we have these great opportunities available for you. Building repository of volunteers. I mean, just following the heels of the Halloween discussion, it would be great if someone was like, oh, I'm interested in public safety, or I'm interested in children. Then you would automatically send them a note and say, hey, we have this Halloween event coming up. Maybe you're interested in volunteering for this event. So that's where building a repository of volunteers really helps. I'll also say in past experience, building a repository of volunteers also helps in tracking hours. And that helps if we're looking to potentially grow this such that we have like awards for volunteers, which we do. But what I mean is, like, I know at the federal level, there's like a President's Award for volunteers. And if we want to start submitting folks for things like that, it's a really great way to track them. Also, creating a page on the city website, definitely that would be contingent on us refreshing our website, which will happen in the fall. But we hope to have a dedicated page where we would have like this form and folks could fill it out and tell us what they're interested in. And then that dashboard could also provide a list of opportunities. Working with our comms team, we're also looking at providing a dedicated section of the Star newsletter to keep residents informed about volunteer opportunities and city events. So we're hoping that that helps draw volunteers in as well. Next slide. So just some examples. We looked locally, and really the only two local cities that have volunteer web pages dedicated to volunteerism is South San Francisco and Belmont. Full disclosure, I did manage the South San Francisco volunteerism launch, so I'm well familiar with volunteerism efforts. So both have standard volunteer interests, forums, and tabs, providing more details on the various opportunities. And they also do have opportunities to then recognize volunteers, as mentioned earlier. So that's just some examples of what we could potentially do, in coordination with our website refresh. Next slide, please. This is just a draft timeline. We just wanted to give you a sense of how soon we could implement this if this is something that you'd like to move forward on. We could create a volunteer interest form pretty easily and start building the repository of volunteers, and we would start that this month. We would then create a new volunteerism page on the city website, and that would be pending the new website, which we would anticipate to be in the fall, November-ish. We could also develop volunteerism section in the Star, which could potentially come in the October or November issue, and that's working closely with our comms team. Next slide, please. And so with that, just thank you. It's Molly and I on the Dark Skies hike. Michelle probably recognizes the picture. So thank you so much for your time, and would love to hear your thoughts on things you like, things you don't like, any of that. We would welcome your feedback.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina. That was very organized, and yeah, it's a nice platform to move to the next level of volunteerism in Brisbane. So I'll start with Councilmember Kern. You have any questions for Christina?
I already ran into Christina today, and I told her that I thought the potential volunteer program list was really, really good, and I'm super excited to see work done on that. Regarding the plugging, if we could do an organized event on Crocker Park Trail, specifically on Crocker Park Trail, so maybe it's Friends of the Crocker Park Trail, we do something around that. There's a big opportunity that we have there that we could
definitely
find some
need.
help with. Yes. And if you're looking for one more opportunity of a website that's got some good volunteer solicitations, it's the Redwood City Parks Foundation. They actually have a list out there where you can actually sign up to do different volunteer activities, which I think is pretty good. But overall, great report, great effort on staff's part, I think.
Councilmember Mackin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions. First of all, Christina, thank you for the report. Would you be officiating this program? And Molly?
It's my understanding that yes,
Okay.
city manager, it would live under city manager's office.
Okay.
Yep.
So are we creating a horrible bureaucracy to take up massive hours, or do you think that this is manageable?
I believe it's manageable with the current resources that we have. I mean, having launched something like similar in another city, I think it's definitely manageable.
And noted in the report said something about assist in management of the volunteer corps recruitment, so some of the volunteers could help with this?
Yes, 100%.
And just a couple suggestions on some things that I didn't see on your list. I know in San Francisco, this was always a big issue years ago. Sports fields, maintenance and refurbishment.
Okay.
Because it's very expensive, and a lot of teams, they were always going, oh, there's this and that, and we don't always have resources to fix it. And a lot of times the teams will say, we'll get together on a day and fix a field. Painting of those red curbs would really be nice. What I call tree lawns, which that's a Midwestern term, the area that the city owns between the sidewalk and the street. and that is city property, which we're paying a fortune to landscaping services. Maybe we could get people to adopt those and do some plantings, because mostly they grow weeds and there's some old shrubs, but that would be advisable. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
P3 did a lot of that. It just depends on where in Brisbane you're talking about. But
And through the chair, we did talk with Sue and obviously complimented her on her efforts and made it clear that we want to complement those efforts moving forward, and we'll suss out what that relationship looks like. I'm sure we'll have some volunteers one way or another.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Connell.
My only comment is, and I think that this is a pretty comprehensive list of opportunities and things to develop, is that we had less than 1% of our population respond. And of that, most of them were older people. And I think that that's a really big area to tap, because older people aren't necessarily busy with young children and jobs, and not that we aren't busy still, but I think that is a good place to start is with older people, and it can almost be considered park and recreation.
Okay, thank you.
A good job.
Councilmember Davis.
I don't have any questions.
All right. Again, great job, Christina.
Thank
You know, the building the repository, I think is just a brilliant idea. On the waiver, so would the waivers be for a year? Is it an annual thing, or does it stay in perpetuity until the person pulls the waiver?
I think typically waivers are event-based.
It is event-based.
Yeah, typically you would have to fill out a waiver for each event, or, that you are volunteering for, but that's definitely something I can look into with legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then, just the standardized form, I think is great, and the dedicated website. Perfect. So thank you so much. So there was one thing that I was going to mention that I didn't see in here was the potential strategy for getting our businesses to participate. And so this seems more like residents, but what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Mayor. So there is a relationship to the effort that's already underway related to broadening our engagement with the business community. Been working on that with Christina Mitchbull. Our efforts there are, our hope is that we will find willing business partners who wish to contribute to the city. Those efforts have initially been focused on some of our larger events, but mostly we're just trying to build up that relationship in a way where those asks make some sense. The businesses do have enormous resources, particularly through their people.
Yes.
And as they spend time in this community, I am sure that they'd be interested in volunteering as well. So I think that there's a component that we can add to this that also is complementary to this other effort that we're working on related to engaging the business community and their employees and seeing where we can plug them in.
That's fantastic. Yeah, having a structure makes it a lot easier for a business to do some kind of give back, activity. And so,
yeah, to your point, Mr. Mayor, that, right now it's your city manager having conversations, and that's great. And I'm beginning to see some fruit, but having this as a basis for continuing conversations, I think, is important.
Yeah, fantastic.
I'll also add that, what we've done in the past, or what I've done in the past, is I've also done like a group interest form, such that you would have a form separate just for groups, right? That they could fill out on the website. And if it's a company with, say, I have 10 folks who are willing to come out and do invasive species removal, you would then connect them with the right folks. But I think Jeremy is 100% correct in that you build the relationship first, such that they have their go-to person in the city that they go to, and they ask about the volunteer event, and then you kind of hold their hand through it. I think that's typically how it works. So it's more of a function of economic development.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, getting them to continue, right?
Right.
You establish the relationship. Yeah, it was a great event. Our employees loved, picking up trash on the Crocker Park Trail. And so let us know when we can do it again. And yeah, that's great. Madison, you want to make a comment?
Okay, I'm going to try to be careful.
I know.
I'm aware of another entity who gets a lot of interest from businesses in town, wondering if they could be connected to resources to volunteer. But in my experience, when reaching out with staff, there's not really like a list of things ready to go that are flexible projects. They're mostly just like, oh, we're going to be having a cleanup day on a Saturday. And that's nothing that a business is going to select. So I think it would be good, not just, you guys are building those relationships, but there's other entities in town that have the relationships. And they're fielding these inquiries also. So if there could be maybe a coordinated effort and some kind of already existing bank of projects that, you might have a nice middleman there to funnel leads. So, just keep that in mind.
The entity you're speaking of, it will be a very important partner.
Yes,
Yes,
100%.
there you go. All right, so do you feel you have enough direction?
Yes, but we did miss public comment.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Thank you for bringing that up. City Manager Dennis, come on up, Michelle, sorry.
I'm sure it's obvious that I filled out the survey because of the tree stuff. So 2 things. One, I want to make sure that in the waivers, we have waivers so that we're protected if we go on private property to help people with their trees, that the property owner's protected and so are the people. So I want to make sure that we have waivers that go both ways so that we really can have an active volunteer group that goes out and helps individuals with problems with their trees, such as taking ivy off of them. I think that's very important. It's been one of our stumbling blocks. And then the other thing is that we do have an organization that actually is sort of, San Bruno Mountain Watch. We do a lot of volunteering, and we also do a lot of hosting of businesses that want to have a volunteer opportunity. And so please remember to use that as a resource. And we do weekday opportunities for projects, and we always have a lineup of projects that need doing on the mountain. It is not just Brisbane centric, but across San Bruno Mountain. Thank you. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you, Michelle. All righty. So I don't see any hands raised, and I don't see anyone online with a hand raised. So do you have enough?
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll work on this utilizing the timeline that you saw earlier, and I'm sure we'll have a presentation at some point in the near future about how our efforts are going.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to staff report, city manager's report, city updates and upcoming activities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just pull up my notes. I'm going to focus tonight primarily on upcoming events. Although I will start with
Should we extend the meeting? Do we need to extend the meeting? Or can you do it in 4 minutes?
I can do this very quickly.
Okay.
We do need to reschedule the paving that unfortunately was, we mentioned in the STAR to September 26th and 29th. I've asked staff to put that information out on the signboards and other mechanisms. This Saturday is a pop-up for the B of A site from, I believe it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And we hope you come out. This is the last of 4 pop-up events. It will be at the location. So looking forward to seeing people there. Next Wednesday, September 10th is a pop-up at the Sunrise Room for those between 7th and 12th grades. Hope to see you for that. On September 16th is a Tuesday, Latine and Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. Thanks to Raphael, our friends at Melissa's, who'll be hosting that event in the park from 5 to 7. Thank you. That's my
All
comments.
right, thank you very much, Jeremy. Okay, Mayor Council matters, countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. Anybody like to report out? Madison? Terry?
I don't have any reports out, but on the quarry subcommittee that we had with Councilmember Lentz and myself, has that project been filed? I was gone for a month. Has that project actually been formally amended with the city?
No, we have not received a revised application.
Okay, thank you.
And then there was the request for the examples. Have they, of other data centers that are similar in size and style?
We haven't received that yet, although I'm expecting it.
Thank you. Okay, on this side, Frank?
Nothing to report out at the county level?
Okay, Colleen?
Always.
Okay, bring it on.
Okay. CCAG, special meeting. I'm going to try to encapsulate as much as I can. There's a lot I need to tell you. There was a special meeting July 30th. This was to discuss and deliberate on SB 63. You might recall that would be a half-cent sales tax that would fund Bay Area Transit. Particularly BART and Muni are in the worst dire straits financially. Caltrain's showing a bit more promise. They've got actually increased ridership. This bill came about as Senator Scott Wiener proposed that San Mateo County be enjoined in supporting all Bay Area Transit. This is a little controversial in that it includes Muni and AC Transit. And the number of riders that were tallied by transit agencies saying they're from San Mateo County and what San Mateo County agencies tallied are not the same. So they don't believe us, we don't believe them.
By a large margin?
Couple of percentage points, but when you're multiplying that times calculating how much they want you to donate in money, it makes a difference. So there's a bit of problem there. The CCAG board discussion included problems with safety and cleanliness being continuously cited by riders, never resolved, meaning not resolved by transit agencies, even though the complaints are constant. Concerns were voiced about giving money to these agencies when we have no representation at all on the boards that govern them. And finally, accountability was a big issue since there presently are no consequences when agencies ask for money, do not follow through on promises to improve their operations. That has happened over and over the last 10 years. CCAG board members expressed strong support for the representation and accountability measures being negotiated by Diane Papin, our state assembly rep. She's negotiating with Scott Wiener, who's one of the two authors of the bill. Assemblymember Papin wants very clear language in the bill addressing those issues. In fact, we've talked about amendments, and now I understand that Assemblymember Papin doesn't want amendments. She wants things written into the bill.
Love her.
Also, transit agencies couldn't change service or discontinue service in our county without being reviewed by a representative from San Mateo County. That was a big demand because one of the ways they might balance their budget is say, well, we're just going to cut out the 292 or not make as frequent stops. So I'd reported back to you that CCAG had recommended each of our cities discuss this, and we never got it agendized. I don't know what happened. It never made it on an agenda. So when we had this discussion, several cities, it was interesting, had given their board reps of CCAG specific direction. So some of the cities came back and the board rep was told to abstain from the voting. Some were told to vote no, some were told to vote yes. And the final resolution that ended up with the CCAG board was very long and very specific, and it included extremely strong language endorsing Assemblymember Papin's insistence on accountability and representation. And representation would consist of a board where San Mateo County might have more than one person sitting on that board to look at the financial consequences and the operations of all these agencies. Given that I didn't have the benefit of all of your feedback. I voted yes on the measure, and I'd like to explain the reason I voted yes was because those very strong provisions were in there. And a lot of CCAG board members said they would have voted no had we not put all those measures in the resolution. Sad to say, subsequent to that, we forwarded our resolution on to Samtrans. Samtrans was the final component of San Mateo County Transit to vote on this, and they voted in favor of the bill, and they were reluctant to endorse the protections that we proposed. So they submitted a, yes, we want to participate, and we will just do whatever comes up in the bill.
They get to decide that?
Pardon
Or
me?
they have their own vote?
They have a vote, but their vote is final. So CCAG was making a recommendation to Samtrans.
Samtrans is the one who has the
Samtrans
real
had
vote.
the final real vote, and they recommended just going for it without all the very specific accountability and representation measures. They said, we don't want to upset anybody. And there was apparently, I wasn't at that meeting, there was a lot of discussion about why they did that.
Is the Samtrans board though made up of other elected officials? Wasn't
Yes.
what's her face from South City on there for forever?
Samtrans board right now is Carlos Romero, East Palo Alto is the chair.
So it was other elected officials from
Yes.
other
Yes.
our
Yes.
our peers then.
Yes.
Oh well.
And
Keep that in
so
mind.
The status of the bill, it's still not final in Sacramento. So the latest update I got just today is that Monday it will be reviewed by the Assembly Transportation Committee, where Assembly Member Pappen is on the is a member of that committee, and that there may be subsequent Assembly Committee reviews. We don't know what those would be, or there's word that the Senate different committees may still want to review it. Interestingly enough, I found it fascinating that yesterday, Senator Scott Wiener was on KCBS radio chastising San Mateo County, claiming we don't pay enough to support BART. I'll also add that in our CCAG meeting, we learned that in allocations to pay for BART, San Francisco forgot that they have the BART extension to the airport, which they own and operate. So we've covered that base with them, that they need to contribute for that. And as the counterpart to Scott Wiener, KCBS Radio interviewed County Supervisor Ray Mueller, who cited the lack of representation we have on BART and the absence of accountability for efficient use of funds. So there's no timeline yet for when the bill's language will be finalized. It's what they call a shell bill, meaning it's not written up. They start putting things together. And if it passes, here it gets really interesting. There's no timeline, don't know when this language will be finalized. If it passes, the sales tax measure would appear on the spring ballot for voters. However, part of the current controversy is that even if our voters reject the measure in San Mateo County, there are some who believe that because Samtrans voted to be part of it, we are already obligated to be part of it. How do you like that? San Mateo County could be removed, but that would have to happen in Sacramento by Sacramento legislators. That could be on either side. That could be Diane Pappen. It could be Scott Wiener saying, we don't want you after all. So there's a lot up in the air on this.
Does Tom want to pipe in about any of this? Oh, I don't know if he's here. Okay, never mind.
And considering the deficits that are being...
Sorry, I am here. I just couldn't get it off mute. When the voters passed, you may remember, I don't remember the proposition number, but 8 or 10 years ago, the voters said that everything that was voted on by the legislature had to be in print publicly for a minimum of 72 hours. That deadline's Tuesday of this coming week, because there is a House deadline that any amendments to any legislation have to be in place on Friday, a week from tomorrow, which then you take Friday, you minus the three days. And this is not a rule they can play with. They have tried, and it's one of the rare instances where the courts have said, this is not us getting involved in the legislature's business. This is the voters telling you that this is a rule you have to adhere to. So Tuesday midnight, if Wiener or Pappen have an agreement, one of them is going to have to put what's called amendments across the desk. So you should know by Wednesday morning.
Okay. So I also have a PCE report. I'll tell you the good news first. The good news is that PCE has now exceeded 2,000 chargers installed in EV Ready program, and 3,000 are already still in the pipeline that aren't complete. The formidable accomplishment of this program, it has really been getting chargers in multifamily dwellings, which was a big deficit. Those people could not buy electric vehicles because they had a real hard time finding chargers. And then we get to the negative. The board received updates on Trump's big, beautiful bill. It negated much momentum towards clean energy under Biden that was reflected through the Inflation Reduction Act. Many of the tax credits under the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, will terminate in the next 3 to 6 months. Credits on solar and wind will also be phasing out by the end of 2027. As for the opportunity to install wind or solar energy generation on public lands, most of those permits will likely be rejected now as well. Battery projects will face additional hurdles. For existing projects, they need to start within 6 months. Criteria for what constitutes start of construction has still not been clarified by the Trump administration. And there are new restrictions on where materials can be sourced from as well, and materials being battery components. You should expect to see a reduction in new solar and wind projects, both. The gap will be filled, we anticipate, somewhat by geothermal, but not completely. And fortunately for PCE, all of our contracts for new energy projects, there's been many over the past couple years, and they hadn't all necessarily started ground when they were approved. All of these projects appear to be safe because they're already in progress. So any projects contemplated for PCE beyond 2030, solar will especially be impacted. It's going to be hard to do solar going forward.
Wow.
And there will be disruption nationwide in clean energy development everywhere else due to interconnection delays. You've heard about that. Disrupting the timing guidelines now imposed on projects. Many new projects were also relying on federal funding that is no longer available. Right now, wind power, everybody asked about this on the board. It's extremely expensive. The question is whether the market will pivot to gas or solar, and price, of course, is going to determine the outcome. For residential customers, the energy tax credits under Inflation Reduction Act will end December 31st, 2025. That's this year. So anyone contemplating solar on their house, electrification, do it immediately because it's going to be hard to find a contractor who has to start the project and complete it. And taking advantage of those tax credits is huge. Mm-hmm. We'll anticipate that'll result in slower adoption rates, converting from gas to electric in homes, and of course, more demand on energy. On a positive note, there is more domestic manufacturing of batteries for homes that has started. Large-scale batteries that are for large projects, energy storage, are still mostly available from foreign entities. Samsung is currently manufacturing batteries, large-scale in the U.S. They've not yet been deemed a foreign entity, so we're watching to see if that happens because they're producing so many, and if they're deemed foreign entity, those batteries can't be used. So I'm sorry for the long report, but it's really a lot of important information.
Always appreciate it, Councilmember Mackin. Thank you. All right, so moving on to written communications.
Council received correspondences, 719 Gold regarding the quarry, 715 Shanahan Quarry, 722 Caracas Dangerous Tree on San Francisco. 7:21 Rogers Quarry Subcommittee meeting on Wednesday. 7:23 Cherbowski Effects of Quarry Development. 7:27 Hohen Data Center Ordinances for Quarry. 8:3 Mills Bayland Specific Project Draft EIR. 8:9 Zadig Quarry. 8:9 Sifrin Quarry. 8:13 Levine Public Comment on Baylands DEIR. 8:21 Seekins Crocker Trail Development Subcommittee. 8:20 Latham Crocker Trail. 8:15 Straw No E-Bikes on Crocker Trail. 8:17 Goethals Meet Linda Patterson. 8:18 Smith Baylands Development Project. 7:15 Mohammed Indian Justice Coalition Resolution supporting Muwekma Ohlone Tribe. 8:26 Reyes Proclamation Prostate Cancer Awareness. 8:24 Wiener interested in information regarding cooling centers in Brisbane. 8:29 Johnston Quarry. 9:2 Grimes Greenbelt Alliance comment on Brisbane Baylands Draft EIR. 9:2 Johnson EIR comments revised specific plan Baylands. 9:1 Hopper in support of Complete Street Safety Committee to implement full street closures. 9:1 Mills support of Complete Street Safety to implement full street closures. 9:4 Frisk support of Complete Street Safety to implement full street closures. 9:4 Harding also Complete Streets Halloween street closure. 9:4 Repke letter in support of proposed Halloween street closure. 9:3 Pave support of Complete Streets to implement full street closure. 9:3 Veray street closure. 9:4 Crossley Halloween street closure support. 9:4 Caliper Halloween street closure. And 9:4 Wirwek Brisbane residents trick-or-treaters support for the CSSC proposed street closures.
All right.
That's it,
Thank you for that, City Clerk. Yeah.
And Mayor, I've got a call for a couple of the future agenda items.
Okay.
Okay.
Absolutely. Go for it.
I'd like to propose 2 new agenda items for, if not our next meeting, a future meeting. First, camera installation at Community Park. I'd like us to focus on how camera technology can improve public safety, optimize park management, and foster community stewardship. Second, the scoping and assessment of a trail creation on city-owned property between Humboldt and Lenning Way, where an informal path already exists and is in use by residents. A clearer and more manicured surface could provide additional egress in the event of an emergency. I believe these are critical topics for council discussion to provide next steps on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other item. I would like to request that the council consider, we could actually convene an ad hoc committee again. I would like to see us explore Parkside too. I think it's time to do that. I think it's time for Brisbane to take charge of its own future and not be waiting for developers to dictate that to us. We have a lovely plan for Parkside 1. Parkside 2 is going to come sooner than we think. And I think we're at a critical juncture of time that we're in a very good position to find people to work with us on this.
What's Parkside 2? Like a 2.0? Like an expansion?
Parkside 2 was part of Parkside 1. There would be potentially Parkside 2, which was possibly the post office, which recently I was told now belongs to Prologis. And it was also where Heirloom is and Brisbane Village, Bank of America. That was all considered when Parkside 1 was discussed.
Okay.
This would be another phase. So that the whole thing, what I'd like to see or suggest the council consider is a specific plan. It's our entrance to town.
I think that's a great suggestion. All righty. Thank you. So we will adjourn
We
to
need
our.
oral communications too.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Oral communications number 2. Anybody out there? Like, okay. No one online. Okay, now we can adjourn to our workshop.